The most frustrating part in both Iraq and Afghanistan, it was that I had to be so nut to butt with these counterparts, dude. And for example, in Iraq, these I lived inside their compound, right, of these GRU, and they were always sometimes they would be like, oh, with that we had to let that guy go because we think he was Al Qaeda, and so I was not really sleeping well. It was so intense that, like, I remember spending days on a freaking rooftop talking airplane with the sniping team, and then during the firefight, I was helping the machine gun man to bring up the 240 with the ammo. He was only, maybe 50 yards in front of me. He went into this building to check it out, and the building went off. We pulled him out, but he was, I think he was legs gone from the waist down. And
this is Alone and Unafraid. Welcome back to Alone and Unafraid, where we explore the intersections of everyday life, mental health, and mindset with ordinary people who have or are now facing incredible challenges. Stefano Guadagnuolo, also known as G-Man, or G11, joins us today. G11 is because Guadagnuolo is hard to read in English, and with 11 letters, G11 is field expedient. You might detect a slight accent as Stefano was born and raised in Italy, where he began his military career as an Italian army officer. He later immigrated to the United States, serving over 20 years in both the U.S. Army and U.S. Air Force. Stefano is a man of unyielding determination to pursue his dreams despite facing multiple obstacles, intense anxiety, and the trauma of war. I'm excited that he is here today sharing his extraordinary experiences, the bonds formed in combat, and the resilience that defines his journey. Stefano is one of my oldest and most treasured friends, and I'm honored to talk to you today. Stefano, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Ted. Thanks for having me.
All right, so you have a really, really interesting story, and I think it's important that people hear this. You and I have known each other it'll be 25 years in December, right? Yeah, 25 years in December, because we first met in pre-scuba at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, when we were going through the engineer diver course, right?
Yep. 2000, what was it? Early 2000?
It was 99. It was
1999.
Yeah, it was, remember, because we were there over Thanksgiving of 99. Because I was roommates with Tom Isaac, and you were roommates with Sean Tremblay, and you guys lived across the hall from us, I think, right? Or were you with Larry?
Yep.
So,
bad memory. Probably, I think it was Tremblay. Yeah.
But anyway, so everybody probably is listening can hear a faint accent. So if everybody doesn't know, Stefano is originally from Italy. So tell us about where you grew up and how you came to meet. How did you get to the American Army, all those years later?
Yeah, long story. But let me tell you, so, grew up, born 1971 in a little town, Vicenza, founded by the Romans in 2012 BC in northern Italy. And I grew up there. So my young life until I was 23. When I was roughly 19 years old, after the first year in college in Parma, I decided to just join the military because in Italy is the draft. Back in the days, it was the draft, and I didn't want to do the draft. I wanted to do some quality time, so I became an officer in the Italian Army, and I did 2.5 years as a mountain troop guy. Those are the guys that, the equivalent of the 10th Mountain Division, pretty much. They wear a funky Robin Hood hat with a feather on, and their job is pretty much to do mountain warfare, and I was stationed on the Alps. Back in the days, the Italian army was still a defensive, what they call a defensive army, and it was the year 1990, so Cold War, not a lot of things happening except for the Gulf War. I think we got spun up a bit, but nothing much. And it was kind of, a very cheap military. I was kind of disappointed. I want to do something more. And so I tried to go SF, an Italian SF, and I found out it was highly political to do that. So I aborted immediately. I was actually kind of so depressed about it that I already bought a ticket to go to Castelnaudary in France and join the French Foreign Legion because I knew that those guys were, professionals. But my brothers kind of put some sense into me, and so I didn't. Went back to school, for another year or two, but it wasn't my place. I knew that I wanted to do something else. And so I believe it was 1994. And keep in mind, I only knew Italian, didn't speak any other languages, a bit of French. And I just put all my belongings into a backpack. I have few million liras, which is a couple of $1,000 in my bank account, and bought a ticket to San Jose, Costa Rica, one way. Didn't know what to do when I get there. Nothing. Didn't speak Spanish. I was like, I need a clear cut, get out of here and do something. So I flew to Costa Rica, kind of ended up in the jungle with some scuba divers. I was a apprentice dive master at the time. So not even a full-fledged dive master. But, I was trying to kind of work in a dive shops that I could find in the jungle. Not a lot to do there, a lot of smoking pot surfer. I realized I couldn't do much. But one of the guys told me, dude, you want to dive, go to Honduras, the island of Roatan. And that it's scuba dive paradise. So I was like, okay. At this time, I knew Spanish. I learned Spanish pretty good because it was about almost a year that I was living in Central America. But
and Spanish is really close to Italian too, right? I mean, they're linguistically similar languages, Romance languages.
Oh
yeah.
Oh yeah. It wasn't very hard for me to learn it. But Honduras was almost funny because I got off the plane, drove with a taxi to this resort on the west end of the island, got to the pier. I told them, hey, I want to be a dive master. And they were like, okay, show up tomorrow. And the first month, I think they paid me in instruction. So I wasn't making any money. But then I became an actually PADI dive master, and I worked for the dive shop for almost a year. And I think I was getting some 3,000 lempiras a month as a pay, which is $300 roughly. But it was so cheap back then in that island. There was no resorts. There were no even the roads were mud. I mean, if you go now to Roatan, you're going to see resorts, and it's incredible. But back in the mid-90s, there was nothing there. And so I lived in a little shack in the jungle with a couple of other divers, and it was a very easy life, man. Get up in the morning, go to the pier, jam tanks, dive 2-3 times a day, night dive 2 or 3 times a week. And I did that for a solid year. I logged 2,500 dives in that place alone. It was ridiculous, but it was an awesome experience. But that after a year, I was definitely I had the island fever. I couldn't take it anymore. I got to get out of there. It's crazy. I did meet my future first wife, an American tourist who was diving also there. But at the time was just, somebody I met. But she told me well, if you ever want to come to visit the States, here's my address.
Do you think it was? Do you think she was like re- really serious, or was it like a she was just gay? Because back then there was no real cell phones or anything, So
Oh, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, to keep my family informed that I was alive, we didn't even have a phone that I could use. So I had to drive once a month. I will go to the capital, which is Cox and Hole on the island, and where they have a telephone company that you could pay cash and you can make international phone calls. And I will literally call my mom with there was no cell phone. So I would call the home phone, have a 20 minutes conversation, and that was it for an entire month, or sometimes even a month and a half. I mean, it depends when I had the time. So yeah, I mean, we we were a little close, when we met, and then when she left to go back to the States, she just, hey, if you want to visit the States, this is my phone number, this is my address. I mean, and thinking like she thought like, I'm never going to see this guy ever again, and I thought the same. But months went by. I mean, I think I met her in January or February. I didn't leave Roatan until May, I want to say, of that same year. But I one day I was like, that's it, I'm out of here. I just want to go visit the States. I didn't have enough money to fly to the States, so I sold the most expensive part of my gear, my diving gear, and I was able to purchase a ticket to Houston. I wanted to fly. At the time, she was living in Santa Cruz, and so I wanted to fly to San Francisco, but the price was too much. Flying from Roatan, I had to go to San Pedro Sula, which is a major airport hub in Honduras, and then from there, I think, it was a straight shot to Houston, and then Houston, San Francisco, where I couldn't make the Houston, San Francisco leg, so I had to settle for Houston. So whatever, I don't care. I did it. I kissed by all my friends in Honduras and flew to Houston. Showed up in Houston in the middle of the night, didn't speak English, a backpack full of diving clothes and everything that I brought from Italy.
And it's important to note that you're a tank top and cut off sleeve shirt fanatic. Like, I don't remember. Do you own any shirts with sleeves on them?
Yes. I even have some long sleeve, believe it or not.
Yeah,
but I had to live in Finland for 2 years, remember?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I needed
we'll
all
get
the
to
sleeves
that.
I could get.
It gets better, but yeah. So you get to Houston and you're at the airport. You don't speak English, and it's the middle of the night. And
No,
so
absolutely.
you're gonna love this.
I literally showed up. I showed to a cab driver. I showed an address that I found online at a internet cafe back in Honduras, about this hostel, like a youth hostel. And this dude drives me. I'm just, it's the middle of the night because I think the plane landed at midnight. The hostel closes at 1 a.m. I get to the hostel just in time. The rooms were dirt cheap. The guy was like, okay, yeah, he escorts me to this little room with a bunch of people in it, and I finally crash. And I'm like, holy crap, what am I doing? But you know what? The next day I got up. I felt like I was just, it was an adventure, man. I left Houston because I didn't want to spend too much time in that hostel there. I didn't feel safe. It was a pretty crappy part of town. Funny, I've been to Houston so many times afterwards for hurricane reliefs, and it was, but anyways, and so I took a bus to Austin because everybody told me, dude, Austin is this awesome place to be. So I went to Austin, checked into another hostel, but this one was a nice one. I could tell like it was a little more pricey, but I could still afford it. And I just met up a bunch of people from all over the place, and after a week or so, I still wanted to make it to San Francisco, but I didn't know how. And then this, in the meantime, I was kind of learning basic English, just enough to go by. And I made friend with this Austrian guy who was super friendly, spoke a bit of Italian, so we kind of communicated. And he's like, dude, there's a company, I think his name was Drive Away, where you show up and we have a valid driving license. They give you, and you deliver a car to whatever the car needs to be delivered. And all you got to do is put the gas in it. I'm like, okay, I'm in. So he's like, I got a few other friends we're going to do it with. I'm like, okay. And the other friends were a British dude and a German bloke. This guy, the German dude, didn't speak any English. And he looked like Iggy Pop. I swear to God. I mean, he was like Iggy Pop. Skinny, long, straight hair down to his nipples. And he was carrying a sack. So he didn't have a shirt on his back, just a sack. Whatever. We got in the car. We drove off. It was a Range Rover, a nice car. We had to deliver in 5 days from Austin to San Francisco. And keep in mind, you could drive whatever you want. I think they give you they look at the mileage and they give you much extra mileage so you could kind of take the route you want an extra day. So we have 5 days and I forgot how many miles, but so we take off like, hey, we want to get to California ASAP. So let's buzz through the desert and then we'll have fun on the West Coast. And so here we go. They wake me up in the middle of New Mexico at 2 a.m. and it's my turn to drive. And the co-pilot is the German dude. So because, you want to have somebody awake. So the two guys, the British and the Austrian, are sleeping in the back. Sounds like a joke, huh? Like you get the Austrian and the German guy is sitting next to me, not saying a damn word. And I'm trying to stay awake at 2 a.m., driving through the desert. You know that highway they go through Albuquerque? It's like completely straight as an arrow in the desert.
Like the butthole of America.
I think is I-10, I want to say.
Yeah, 10 runs from Texas, or actually it runs from Jacksonville, Florida, all the way to LA.
To San Diego, right?
Yeah, San
Los
Diego.
Angeles.
LA.
Yeah, LA. Yep. Yeah. And so, okay, I'm trying to stay awake. This dude, I think it was 3:30 a.m. He just touched my hand as I'm driving, and he says, "Stop." And I'm like, "What do you mean, stop, dude? We're in the middle of nowhere. There was no cars. We're the only vehicle on the road. The two dudes in the back are sleeping." So I stop the vehicle, pull over. He gets out. He goes in the back, opens the trunk, pulls out that sack, which turned out to be a TP, like a folded TP, like an Indian TP.
Yeah.
And apparently this guy was a crazy aficionado of Native American, Native Americans, and he studied them back in Germany in his kind of a cult. And all he wanted to do is become one of them. So he stops me. He pulls out his TP. And he walks off 90 degrees off the freeway into the empty desert at 3 a.m. in the middle of New Mexico. And it's, it's super hot out there because it was, I think it was summertime then. And I didn't say it. I just watched him becoming a blip and I closed the door and took off. Like, sun comes up and the two guys wake up and they're like, "What happened to the German guy?" And I'm like, "I dropped him off in the desert." So I'm pretty sure he's dead. Like, I'm pretty sure he didn't make it anywhere because he thought he was going to meet some tribe out there and join them, with his blue eyes and Iggy Pop hair. I mean, I don't know. That was funny. That was a funny story. Definitely true. Huh? Absolutely true. Well, we didn't do anything about him. He was a German tourist. So
yeah,
he was on his own. We just kept driving. But I just want to skip, because from this on, like I did end up meeting again with my first wife. And it just went on, like that. We ended up getting married about 6 to 8 months later. And we got a place in San Francisco. What do you think an Italian guy can do in San Francisco? It's work in an Italian restaurant. You got that. And that's what I did for a year. Just living off tips and loving San Francisco, guys. And back in the 90s, San Francisco was amazing.
You had to sing too, didn't you? I remember you telling me you had to sing like Volare and like all these Sinatra songs and stuff.
Well, yeah, so I couldn't be a waiter because my English was not up to par, but I could I was a busboy. I could clean the plates and clean the tables, and deliver some water and stuff, and that's it. But in this particular restaurant on Columbus Street, in I think if it's still there, it's called Volare, and they had this damn Volare song, which is a famous Italian song, Volare, and it was on every hour or so, and I knew how to sing, and so every hour I was singing the damn song in Italian, and everybody was cheering. Yeah.
And it's important to note too that that's not your preferred taste in music either. You like metal. Like
I'm a big heavy metal guy.
Yeah,
I grew up with Iron Maiden. Yeah. And probably you didn't know this, Thad, but like for the last I think 5 years before I left before I retired from the military, I was in a band. I was the bass player and singer of a band. We did a lot of venues and I had a lot of fun. The Molly Browns in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
Yep. I had a lot of fun. That's probably like, if I could change everything again, I would be a rock star.
Yeah.
That's what I want to be.
So I think so you guys you're living in San Francisco, you're working at the Italian place, and then how did you get from that to finding yourself in the airborne infantry in the Army, in the U.S. Army?
So the hitch of being in the special, I was actually drawn to be the real professional military, like special forces. And I wanted to do it back in the Italian Army, and it didn't happen because, in Italy, SF are very small, very elitarian, and you really got to know somebody to get into it. It's not about merit. It's about who you know. And it's still like that to these days. And I was an officer, so it's even harder. You really got to know somebody. So I never forgot that. That's what I wanted to be my whole life. And now I'm living this crazy whatever all over the place life, and I don't even know what I'm doing, waiting tables, I always got to a point that I was like, what am I doing? Time to change. So one day I wake up and I tell my now ex-wife, let's get out of here. Let's go. I want to go back diving. Let's go down to San Diego. So we pack up our stuff. We quit our restaurants. We throw everything in the car, and we drive to San Diego. We moved to San Diego. We found a place, a small rental in OB. Holy shit! What is that?
Ocean Beach. Right?
Ocean Beach, yeah, which is like a hippie place. Right now that place will probably cost you, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably millions. But back then it was cheap, and it was 2 blocks from the beach, and we just got that place, and we were so happy we would go to the beach whenever we wanted to. I found a job as a dive master at the Horizon was the name of it, a ship off Point Loma, and my ex-wife got a job as a ESL teacher, like English as a second language, in San Diego. And we did that for 6 to 8 months. And then I remember one day just walking by a recruiting center. And I always knew about all the soft units in a lot of countries. I studied them when I was in the Italian Army. And there was one in particular that always intrigued me. And it was the Air Force Special Tactics. Obviously, I knew everything about the SEALs, about the Rangers, about the Green Berets, the Delta, blah, blah, blah. I knew about SOAR, but this one was so elite. It was so tiny that it was almost like hard to find. But when I was reading the specs about it, I was really intrigued because these guys were not only, SF like everybody else. So, infill, exfil, and soft type missions, but they were very technical. They were doing jobs that no one else was doing, such as, close air support and deep reconnaissance for landing aircraft in the middle of nowhere. And I in between them and the PJs, everybody's familiar with the PJs. It was fascinating that the Air Force had these special operations. So I went to the Air Force one day. I just got off work, from the boat. I went to the Air Force recruiting center. And, at the time, obviously, my English was okay. Like, I could speak no problem. I was already working as a waiter. So I had a thick accent, much, much worse than now. And the guy was like, oh, okay. Well, are you a citizen? I'm like, no, I have a green card. Oh, sorry about that, dude. Yeah, in Air Force, like you need a TS security clearance for this job. You should do, just go down the hall and then hit the Marines or the Army. I'm pretty sure they will take you. I think you can get in with, a job that doesn't require a security clearance. But don't forget, like, do something that will help you later on join the special tactics community, which is get like airborne wings or a dive bubble, something like that. And I left it at that. I went home because I was like, crushed. But then I thought, well, what the hell, And so a few days after that, I went back to the same recruiting spot. This time I went to the Army, and I'm a bit biased because I don't think I can ever be a Marine or a sailor. I was in the Army, the Italian Army, so I'm kind of more like an Army guy, So I went straight to the Army, and I went to the recruiter, and I'm like, hi, can I join the Special Forces? And Thad, you correct me if I'm wrong, but we're talking mid-90s. So the what is it called? The SF program, like the
SF babies.
Yeah, exactly. The
they
18X X-ray
they
program.
didn't have it back then.
Exactly, it didn't exist. I think it came out in 2004 or 3 or something like that.
It was so back in the 90s invasion. Yeah,
right. So this is 1996, and so the guy's like, oh, I'm sorry, you can't join the Army to be an SF guy. You have to do something else and then apply to be SF. All right, okay. Well, let's do Rangers then, because I knew Rangers were infantry, or at least kind of like elite infantry, and so that's something that I could do. The guy was like, the recruiter was like, sure, yeah, absolutely. Ranger, yep, you have a green card, you said, right? You're legal. Like, yeah, I'm legal. I got Social Security. I'm paying taxes,
okay. Most people don't realize that I know in the Navy too, you don't have to be a citizen. Like, I remember in my company, we had Jamaicans and like all Filipinos, like dudes from all over the world just showed up, but they weren't citizens. Yeah. So
true. And then I have another story I'll tell you pretty soon about Vicenza, about that specific thing. But so the guy was like, but you could be an MP, man. You can. So it started with the whole speech about, and I stopped him like, I just want to be a Ranger. If you can give me a Ranger contract, I'm going to sign it right now. Otherwise, I'm going to walk away. And he's like, okay, sure. Here he goes. And I signed a Ranger contract that day, which means for people, I'm sure everybody understand, like, you sign a contract, which means that they guarantee you're going to have a slot to do whatever is written on the piece of paper. Then it's up to you making it.
And it's worth mentioning too, like, was yours, like mine was, they put it in a typewriter and it had like a whatever that where you can write 3 copies, like you
you sign it and they give you the bottom copy. Yep.
Yeah. but they typed it in a typewriter and then they pulled it out and then they hand wrote what my contract was. Yours handwritten like that, or was it just me?
Absolutely. I remember to this day, it says Airborne, Airborne Ranger, written like, by a dude.
Yeah, which totally
So,
means shit,
I mean, it's funny, dude. We're talking about the 90s.
Yeah,
a lot of
so
the
different.
folks probably, there's no computers. If they were, and a few people had them. I still didn't own a cell phone until, I don't think I owned a cell phone until I went to dive. I went to dive school with you, dude.
We got cell phones because remember we got those little Nokia.
Yeah, those Nokia. That was my first cell phone, man.
Yeah, me
That's
too.
crazy.
That was the first one. Yeah, it was. And we got them. They were. It was like not Bell South, but it was something like that. And anyway, so you enlist in the army and
enlisted in the army. A few months later, and my ex, I think, went to stay with my folks in Italy. I think while I was in basic, I went to Benning, basic training, and then straight from basic training to jump school. Airborne school. Finished airborne school. It like back to back. They put me in a 5-ton to RIP, Ranger Indoctrination Program, which is all there in Benning. And I'm getting my butt smoked ridiculously outside. Then they brings us inside to do a simple, to fill out a sheet where, name, social, blah, blah, blah. At the bottom it said, "Are you a citizen?" And I put no. Yeah, I was still a green card holder. I go back out there. They still smoke me. And then all of a sudden they call my name. Actually, they didn't. They always call the last 4 of my social. Because Guadagnuolo, not a lot of people can say it.
Yeah.
So, especially when you've never seen it before. So, they call my last 4. I'm like, get in. And I go there. And one of the Ranger guys was like, dude, you've wrote that you're not a citizen. And I'm like, yeah, I have a green card. I'm legal. Like, dude, you can't be in this program. You need to have a TS security once you get into the regiment. And I'm like, what do you want me? I showed him the contract, and he's like, no, I know you have a contract. And so I don't know what to do, but you can't continue. So they shipped me back to, what do you call it? AIT? Like what is it called? The second part of AIT,
30th
right?
AG or it was probably,
is this the last part of basic training and the infantry, AIT, advanced infantry?
Yeah. You were in, weren't you in 258? I feel like you told me you were in 258.
Yes.
Because I was in 219. So, yeah, anyway.
So anyway, they send me to offices left and right. I'm just like this private getting, shipped left and right. I don't know what I'm doing, what's going on. Finally, I get into an office with a guy, and this guy's like, okay, private, there is a situation here of breach of contract. Like, you have a Ranger contract and we cannot fulfill it. So whoever enlisted you made a big mistake, but it's our fault, not your fault. So good news is that you can get a honorable discharge. Akana had 4 months active duty at this time. You can get a honorable discharge and go home. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I just got my butt kicked for the last 4 months, and then you're sending me home? It's like, yeah, but it's an honorable discharge. You can always get a job. I'm like, I don't care. I came here for I'm like, well, sorry, Ranger can't happen, but you can be an airborne infantry. So I get knocked down in 1 notch, and I'm like, whatever, dude. Airborne infantry. So I knew, there's only one place to go, right? Fort Bragg, 82nd. Yeah. And I knew that was going to happen. But then this same guy calls me back inside, and he's like, dude, we kind of screwed you over on this. So I want to do you a solid. I just put in your name. You're going to be transferred to the 1st of the 508th Airborne Combat Team. And he says it kind of like giggling, like, hey, I did you a solid. And I looked at him like, what does that mean? Like, what is it? I'm like, dude, that's the only overseas airborne battalion besides, the Hawaiian guys, the 25th ID. And they are in Vicenza, Italy. Like, plus, aren't you Italian? I'm like, yeah. Well, then, there you go. And I was like, there is an airborne, American infantry airborne battalion in Vicenza, which is an hour and a half from my hometown. I never knew that. Absolutely. And there it is. Packed my bag, went back home to Italy. This time as a airborne paratrooper. And went to Caserma Ederle, that's where the base is, in the middle of Vicenza. Awesome, dude. That was the best time of my life there, because I'm an Italian wearing a U.S. uniform, and I don't know. It was kind of weird, but it was funny. Every couple of weeks, I could visit my family back home. I lived in Vicenza, in town. Everybody needed me for translating. Even the commander, sometimes the sergeant major were like, hey, get me G, because I need this, I need that. And so sometimes they would pull me out of a foxhole with my saw gun and like, I need the translator. So they would just ship me all over the place where they needed me to translate to Italian generals. I mean, it was crazy. But, I spoke the language, so that was quite useful. So didn't do much. And
no, go ahead. I was just going to say, how did you, because what was next was you were in 1st Battalion 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment in Vicenza. And then
correct. Yeah.
How did you get the idea to go to dive school and be a diver?
So my first enlistment was 4 years, right? I'm in Vicenza. I'm a corporal at this time. I'm doing pretty good. I like it, but I've never forgot about the Air Force. So about 6 months before actually my ETS, I went to this website, specialtactics.com. I don't know if it even exists anymore. Obviously, I have to use the computer from the company. It was the only computer online, and using that ping bong, when it gets online, because it was it was dial up. Yeah. It was slow as hell. And I got on that, and I found the fax number. That's another fun thing. You don't email. There was no emails. There were faxes. So I found the master recruiter for the Special Tactics, United States Air Force Special Tactics, in Herbert Field, Florida. And I faxed him. I faxed him a letter saying, hey, I'm a airborne paratrooper. I want to join Special Tactics as a combat controller. And he faxed me back. I got it. The company was like, dude, there's a fax for you. And I went in the company and they're like, yep, there's a fax from this guy. And he gave me the list of things I need to do. So I did them all, medical records, Social Security, all a bunch of stuff. And I faxed it all to him. And I was kind of stoked because, I knew that in 6 months I could get out of the Army and go into the Air Force. And then I think it was 2 months before ETS, I get a fax. And it says, sorry, dude, there is a... you're supposed to do what's called a pass test to even apply for Special Tactics. And it says in big letters, you have to be CONUS to apply. You cannot apply from OCONUS. If you're stationed overseas, you cannot apply because they will have to fly you home to do the pass test. And if you fail, now they wasted a bunch of taxpayer money to do that. So you have to be CONUS. And I'm like, well, how am I going to do that? I'm like, dude, you just re-enlist. And when you're stateside, we could talk about it. So I went home once again, crushed, didn't know what to do. And I thought about it a few days. And then I figured, well, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to leave the Army, but I did not want to stay as an infantryman. It was too limiting. So I thought about SF, but then I was like, SF is, it's if I go SF, I'm probably going to stay in SF, I don't know. I don't exactly, what the right answer was. But I found at the time the Army had this thing called the BEAR program, which was a program that you could re-enlist for another 4 years, but you could change your MOS.
Yeah, and you could re-enlist a year earlier
exactly.
Than because I did the BEAR program too. Yeah.
So I did that, and I found out about the diving program, which also was fascinating. I was a diver for years before in the civilian life, so that always fascinated me. And then I thought, if I get, dive bubble, which, it's like to be dive qualified in the military, then I have airborne and dive. So it's something more, like the guy told me back in San Diego. So I decided to do it. So once again, faxing back and forth all my this time it was the bear program. So I went through the local Vicenza, Army recruiter. It took a long time, but I got approved. I was in. So I PCS'd out of Vicenza straight to Panama City. And that's funny because when I showed up in Panama City, I went straight to the NDSTC, the Naval Dive Salvage Training Facility, which is the dive school for the Navy, Army, and Marines. I went there, and the Army guys were like, "What in the world are you doing here, man? You shouldn't even come here until you passed pre-scuba, because now if you failed pre-scuba, which is like a course that you do there, that's where we met, right? Where you get actually qualified to even go to dive school. If you don't pass pre-scuba, you can't be a diver. So you're like, they have to reclass me once again and go back as an infantryman. I don't know. So they were like, just get out of here. Just your class date is next week to pre-scuba. Go there and don't fail, because if you fail, it's going to be a pain, because I moved there with my family, I had one son at the time.
Yeah. And Nico was oldest, not like, he was like a little baby. I mean, he was 6 months.
Yeah, Nico was born in 2000. So that was not even. He was born in February 2000. And that was March, April 2000. He was a baby. Like, he was a month or two old baby.
Yeah, he was really little. Yeah, he was 8 months when we finished. Yeah, I remember. Okay, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so when we went to from Lindenwood for pre-scuba, I had kind of like no pressure. I better make it, because if I don't, I have to PCS again. And I just PCS like a few months before from Italy to Florida. So anyways, we made it, right? We made it pretty good in pre-scuba.
It's worth noting. I remember when we got to that, it was like a gym, like a basketball court. And I don't remember how many people it was, but it felt like somewhere between 50 and 100 people. It's probably closer to 50, but all I remember is there was a lot of people in there, and we had to do push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups. Was it a 3-mile run and a 1,000-meter swim?
Yeah, something like that.
But I think on the first day it was just a normal PT test, right? And we had to do a minimum of 10.
Yeah, it was
pull-ups.
Army style.
Yeah, but there were pull-ups were additional, and I remember it was Master Sergeant Andrews and Mendoza were the two instructors, and you had to they would put their fist on the floor, and you had to touch your chest to their fist, and it had to be, let's just say it was 50 people. It might have been, who knows? There was a lot of people in there, and at the end there was only 11 of us left, and out of the 11, it was you, me, Sean Tremblay,
Isaac,
Tom Isaac, Neil, what's that guy's name? Normandy, Matt Hockey, and I know I'm missing a couple.
You have
of
a better
guys.
memory than me, dude.
Because I'm trying to. Woogie. Remember was Woogie. Wazowski, and anyways, there was like 11 of us, and then I remember there was that guy Larry. Because Larry was from 325 at Fort Bragg. You were from 1st of the 508th, and I was from 2502, 2nd Battalion, 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiment.
502nd, yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And so we were all infantry guys, and Sean Tremblay was from 327
Yeah,
from,
was it
from Campbell. We were
for,
both from Campbell.
Yep,
Yeah.
from Campbell. Yep. Yeah, he was an
Yeah,
aerosol
he
dude.
was
Yeah.
in 327, somewhere in 327. But
Yeah.
so we did that. Was like that's the coldest I've ever. One of the coldest places I've ever been. I remember it was just really cold there. And I remember, so we had those 11 folks, and we would go. It was a pretty intense course. It doesn't really look like it from the outside, but when we were there, we had to verbatim memorize all the gas laws, and we had to
Yep.
remember, you had to be like with one arm's length of your dive buddy at all times, and then if you weren't, or you got, remember they would ask us questions, and if you didn't get the question right, did we have to do, like, before they were called burpees, they called them the 8-count bodybuilder or something. I don't remember, but what did they call them? But you had to do, remember they had like that whiteboard, and they would write and at every 15-minute break, you'd have to go do all your exercises to work. But I remember we were in the pool.
Wow, you got a good memory, Thad.
Oh, yeah, I just remember, I can't remember what I had for dinner yesterday, but I remember being there, and we had the 11 people in our class, and I remember we were in the pool doing some pool work. We had to do like 1,000-meter swim or something, and I just remember one guy just quitting, like, yeah, I'm done. Like, he just quit, and then like the next day, like, another guy was like, yeah, fuck this, like, I'm not doing this, is ridiculous. And I can't remember that guy, Larry. I remember his name was Larry, and I remember he was a really good swimmer, like a really fast swimmer. He swam like a dolphin, and I remember he quit, and then it was down to like 7 or 8 of us, and then we finished, and then we went down to Panama City, and we did the whole dive school, which that's where you and I hung out, because we both lived in Panama City, and so we hung out on the a lot, and then so fast forward,
we drove.
We drove together in the morning.
Together every day. Yeah.
Because you had that that Volkswagen Fox, and then remember that car? And remember you sold it, and you traded it for that Westphalia,
from that instructor.
Elmore.
What was his name?
Elmore was his name. Yeah. And
oh god, the petroleum oil in that thing.
I think that's around the same time that we had that Volkswagen Beetle that would die every that little Volkswagen Beetle. And so we were dive school was it was like a year we were there, like right under a year maybe. And I had a great time. It was a good time. And,
I loved it, dude.
Yeah. And then we both got assigned to the same dive team. We went up to 511th Engineer Dive Detachment,
Fort Eustis, Virginia.
Yeah. And
very close to where I'm now.
Yeah, because you're in
Norfolk, which is just across the river.
Yeah, and me personally, I didn't love Hampton Roads area. It just wasn't. It was okay, but we lived. Remember, we had that house in 50th Street in Newport News, and you guys were in Hampton. In what was that neighborhood called? What's the neighborhood called?
Hampton. I mean, it's the only.
Yeah.
It's the
like
one on the water. I mean, I don't know.
By the water, like a kind of an older neighborhood, established older neighborhood.
It's very rundown.
It's rundown now?
I went to see my old neighbor just a few months ago, and I was like, and I lived here. God, that was awful.
It was a nice neighborhood. Gosh, I can't remember.
Then,
it started with a G, maybe. Anyway, so we were in the dive company for, we were there.
Yeah, like
3 years.
You're talking about memory, but from 2000, end of 2000 or early to 2005 for me. I think you left way before me.
Late 2002. But remember, we were there. We were in processing when September 11th happened, and because we were in the hospital. Remember that? We were in the hospital.
That's what I was about to tell you, that everybody says, like, where were you during 9/11? And I remember to this day, and we were driving, going to the hospital, radio on in for Eustis, and we're listening to what's happening. We're kind of looking at each other like, is this real? And then the first thing we say is, I don't think we're going to be able to see Aerosmith tonight at Virginia Beach Amphitheater. We had tickets.
We were supposed to
for
go see Aerosmith. Yeah.
That night, 9/11. Obviously, yeah. Instead, we ended up working at the gate for 4 days straight.
Yeah, I don't know.
Madness happened.
Yeah, it was so. And the crazy thing is, like, I don't even think we had bullets. Like we just had.
No, we were just standing in the gate,
like doing. It was so stupid, and yeah, that was some of my. People always ask me about my time in the dive company, and I met. If there was a place that every misfit and that didn't work out anywhere in the Army, but were like really smart guys and really physically, really in good shape, that's where you'd find them. And that place was like a breeding ground for, SF guys, pilots, and like every single guy that I know either went to SF, warrant officer, pilot. You went to Special Tactics. Cully Neal went to Dev Group. I mean, not Dev Group, CAG. Like, there's all that place would just spawn, because it was like almost touching the magic. You kind of got a little taste of cool guy.
Except for one guy, Green. Yeah. That guy was a tool.
Yeah.
Remember Green?
Yeah.
That guy was a tool.
Yeah. And some guys really bought into the whole thing. I remember because you and I came from the infantry. I remember distinctly just always kind of making fun of, because these guys were trying to do, real Army stuff, and we were like, dude, this is nothing like the infantry. Like, this is a joke. Why don't we just embrace being divers and do cool? But it was a good time because we got to. Remember, we had those 5 tons, and we could just weld shit on our 5 tons. We would go to AutoZone and buy parts for them and fix them ourselves, and like nobody gave a shit about anything. But
it was a huge, amazing experience as far as working as a hardhead diver, because a lot of people don't even know that the Army has hardhead divers. Like they always thought that the Navy does. Instead, you have these. Back in the days when it was still a 00 Bravo, now it's 21 Delta. But when it was a 00 Bravo, I mean, there was probably 80 of us in the MOS, or not even 100, right?
Yeah, I think there was probably like, even with the instructors in dive school, there's maybe like 100 total in the Army. Yeah, because remember there was one. Yeah, and there was the one random guy at Rock Island Arsenal. There was one diver station there, it was a really, really small MOS. Yeah.
So it's funny because you left, obviously, and I had a pretty bad accident in 2004. By the way, in 2003, I became a citizen. Finally, it took me a long time, but in Norfolk Immigration Center, finally, I became a citizen. So that was a pretty good.
I remember you were in Virginia when you told me you had your first dream in English, where you dreamt all in English, not Italian.
True.
Which I always thought was interesting. That I always think when you speak a foreign language but now you're dreaming and. And it would be funny because you'd be talking to your brothers or your mom, or when your mom would come visit, like you would have trouble remembering Italian to speak to. I mean, you could speak to her obviously in Italian, but you couldn't remember certain words for stuff. And you'd be like, oh God, what's the word in Italian for this? So it was just interesting seeing that progression.
Dude, it's crazy. So my wife right now, my second wife we've been together for 10 years now. But she's Italian like me, but we met in the States. She's been in the States less than me because I've been here since 1996. So you do the math. She's been in the States since mid 2000, 2006 or something like that. She speaks fluently. She has a very thick accent, but every time she needs to talk technically, and she has to do it in Italian, she can't. She asks people like, "Can I say it in English, please?" Because we have lost our. Like if I have to speak technically, I can't. A lot of words I don't remember them. I have to say them in English. It's weird, really.
Yeah, it's so crazy. But so you were diving, and so I left in December of 2002, and
Mm-hmm.
then you stuck around. You finished your enlistment in the Army, and I remember you went to work in the shipyard.
Yeah.
Was it the
So,
shipyard in a nuclear reactor or something?
well, the Northrop Grumman shipyard. That's
Yeah,
where all
yeah.
the submarines and the aircraft carriers are built. That was a very scary part of my life because first in 2004 I got very sick, almost died from a freaking tooth extraction, if you believe it. But I survived that and got back in shape and everything. It ended up haunting me later on, and I'll get to it. But so fast forward 2005, I think May 2005. That's my ETS after 8 years in the Army this time, and I am ready to do it again. So I go back to an Air Force recruiter in Virginia Beach. I remember this is like 6 months before ETS, and I started again. I want to go in special tactics. And this guy was not very. No, actually, it wasn't Virginia Beach. It was at Langley Air Force Base. Just across the street from Hampton. Um, and this guy was like, "Well, you're active duty Army, so in order to do that, you have to go through the program called from green to blue." And green to blue, because the Air Force is super picky, the green to blue program was a program that some years wasn't even running because the Air Force just filled their quotas. They didn't need anybody. And the last one they want is probably people from another branch. They really like their people young and dumb from high school. And because, is the branch with less people. So they are very picky. And obviously, I went back and forth. And then finally this guy was like, sorry, dude, this year, the green to blue program for you to join special tactics is not happening. You have to wait until next year. And I'm like, next year? Shit. What do you mean? In May, I'm out. I'm out of the Army. At this time, I have 3 kids, both Luke and Kate were born in Hampton. So
Yep.
I have and my ex-wife was not working. So, because they were little. So I am the one, providing. I can't just do nothing. So first thing I did, it was immediately to find a job, and I had that Northrop Grumman job lined up. Literally, my last active duty day was Friday, and I showed up at the shipyard on Monday. I didn't get a freaking day off, and it was radiological technician. So my job was. We had at the time 10-hour shifts Monday through Saturday. So I only had Sundays off. And it was 10-hour shifts on the docks measuring radioactive levels on the nuclear cores of the aircraft carriers that they were dry docked to be refueled. When aircraft carrier docks to be refueled, it stays there for a year. They have to gut completely the flight deck, take all the depending on which reactor they have to do first, they have to take all the exhausted uranium bars out, and then they have to put the new ones in, rebuild. It's a process that takes a year. And during the whole time, the ship is shut down. So they need dudes that walk around literally in so many places and take radiation levels. And so I was the dude that kind of crawled through tanks and hatches all over the damn place. An aircraft. I worked on the USS Enterprise and the USS Lincoln. And that's all I did. Just crawling around and taking radiation meters, writing on a sweaty piece of paper, and give it to my supervisor for 6 months. But hey, they paid well. They paid me just as much as a staff sergeant in the Army, so I took it. In the meantime,
you were waiting to go.
I was still trying to cross over. So I remember I wake up at 4 a.m. every day, go to the Newport News Park. Remember,
that was a nice running place over there.
Yeah. I ran. I did push-ups. I found whatever thing I could, benches, kids' playground, and do pull-ups. Work my butt off for about an hour and a half, and then change in the back of the trunk of the Fox, the that Volkswagen Fox, and go to the shipyard and pull 10-hour shifts in these, in the guts of these ships for 6 days out of a week. No day, I never take a day off. I never took a leave, nothing, because I was just working and training. But then the first crushing blow came that months after training. The recruiter guy from Langley told me, "Sorry, dude, it's not going to happen this year. I tried and tried. The program is shut down. We're going to have to wait next year." And once again, I have one of those moments like, what am I going to do? I'm not going to do this job in Northrop Grumman forever. So I just go like, I'm going to the Navy. Screw it. I went to the Navy recruiter for EOD, and they took me in. They was like, okay, yeah, everything checks out. I went to take the PASS test. I'm sorry, it's like the Navy special test, whatever they have for a special operation, because EOD are part of a spec ops in right here, Little Creek, and aced it. And I was in for EOD diver, a Navy EOD diver. So I went back to work for Northrop Grumman, but I knew that in a few months I could have taken off for the Navy training. And then one day the recruiter calls me and he's like, sorry, dude, everything has to be postponed indefinitely, possibly until next year. And I was like, what the hell happened? And I don't know if you remember, Thad, but in 2005, the Navy decided to change SEALs, EOD divers, and fleet divers into rates. So
they made their own rate. Yeah.
Exactly. Before 2005, you could have been guns mate or whatever in the Navy, but then your specialty was SEAL. So when you take the tests to go, to be promoted and stuff, your tests are all about gunships and stuff like that, not being a SEALs, because SEALs was a specialty. So was DOD diver and fleet diver. They were specialties, not rates, not MOSs.
Yeah, they called them NECs in the Navy back then.
NECs, correct. Yeah. So then 2005, they finally did it. The Navy made SEALs, EODs, and fleet divers an actual rate. And so they have to stop everything, rewrite curriculums, I mean, you can all imagine, they just created 3 new MOSs for the Navy, so they have to redo everything. So the guy was like, you're still in the program, but we don't know when it's going to happen. It could take 6 months. It could take 8 months before you get a slot. So once again, I'm like, I'm not going to wait this long, man. I got to figure something out. And I was really bummed out. Once again, it's, I was like, dude, it's been over 80 years now. Shit, it's never going to happen. I went home. I did have a small computer this time, finally. I logged in and I went into specialtactics.com. And that day, so maybe it was fate, that day, under the normal active duty units, because there's only 3 in the Air Force of Combat Controller, a new one popped up. And it was the 125th Special Tactics Squadron from the Oregon Air National Guard in Portland, Oregon. And I'm like, never seen this before. It was created that year, 2005. And there was a phone number. There was no hot link so you could click and do it. It just sat there that this unit just created. But there was a phone number attached to it. So I called the number, and the chief at the time of this unit was just stood up. I mean, literally just created. I talked to him on the phone, and he's like, you have an interesting background. If you're really interested, why don't you just show up here and we talk about it in Portland? And that weekend, I bought a ticket from Norfolk to Portland, Oregon, Norfolk, Virginia to Portland, Oregon. On a Monday morning, I showed up at the base in Portland, and the chief was there. We sat down, we talked, and he's like, okay, if you're interested, you're in. And I was like, holy crap, really? Now, so this is a guard unit, but, most controllers, they end up being active, like they stay AGR or long extended tours for a long time because it's a job that you need a lot of training, right? So the entire pipeline to become a combat controller, which is 2 years long, I was active. You are considered like active duty, so Title 10. So, so I was in.
And it's important that people understand that combat controllers in the Air Force aren't just dudes talking on the radio. That you're like a licensed FAA air traffic controller, like at the end of it, right?
Yeah, that was it's called the pipeline because you do so many schools that you just want to puke, and like you start off with a special tactics selection down in Lackland where they kick your ass for weeks. Then when you pass that, and the attrition rate throughout the entire pipeline is ridiculous. Like there are classes where one dude was standing 2 years later, literally. Like they started off with like 25 guys and one guy graduated. My class was probably, I think we started off in 50 on the first day. We were 13 2 weeks later, something like that. You're physically abused like I've never seen anything else before. And abused meaning like, they just squeeze you a lot. And this goes on the entire 2 years, no matter what school you are. So you go to Keesler Air Force Base to do air traffic control. You are an air traffic controller, just like a normal Air Force air traffic controller. But in the morning, there's a cadre of combat controllers that they just drill you into the dirt for hours. So when you get to the classroom, you are like a ghost. You're dead. And you got to study like everybody else. Then you go to egress school, survival school, airborne school, dive school, combat control school. And then you do the final 6 months in Herbert Field where you put it all together and you do like a full-blown mission, like a total package. So you got to JTAC school, like it's all these schools to make you learn everything that is possibly can be done in shooting school to be a SOF operator. But your core specialties are obviously close air support. So you're calling in airstrikes and you're working airfield. So you can show up in the middle of nowhere and create an airfield out of a piece of dirt and run it like you are a mobile air traffic control tower, and you're landing aircraft into the dirt, taxing them out, moving them around with a motorcycle. It's fun. It's the best job in the military to me. And then you work a lot with SOAR. You work with SF guys. You work with SEALs. As a matter of fact, during the OEF and OIF, Iraq and Afghanistan war, there was not a SOF team who didn't have a controllers embedded in it. I mean, there was a point that if I couldn't go to the mission, my team just wouldn't go because they're like, we're not going without you because I am not going out there with some air coverage.
Yeah. And I remember too, as a pilot. Yeah. Well, no, sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, I was just saying like, yeah, you're talking about like the different type of JTACs out there?
Well, yeah, as a pilot, like we would know, we could tell who the combat controllers were, just because of the way they did business, but B, based on their their call sign. So when we'd hear, like in Iraq, when we'd hear
Yeah.
Titan call sign, we were like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Like, this is a real CCT. We'd hear Vampire. We were like, okay, like I can deal with this.
Or
and
Trident.
then you get like, you get Bubba, and I'm like, fuck my life. Like, I got to talk to this guy.
Bubba,
Like,
those are the
and so, and
remember that.
And then in other theaters you'd have and it depended on the
Jaguars.
team. Yeah, you'd have good JTACs from, like when I was in East Africa, they use a call sign Oxblood, I think is a SEAL JTAC call sign. And I had some really, really good ones. And then I had some guys that were not so great. Or if you were working a training or a JSET or some type of non-combat role, if you had Iron Cross call sign, which is a CCT call sign, you're like, okay, this is legit. I know what I'm going to get here. But from a pilot perspective, I always preferred to have real CCTs on the ground. It was much, much easier to orient myself.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the military, a lot of people associate JTAC with controllers, which is absolutely wrong. JTAC is it's a course. You become qualified as a joint terminal attack controller. Typically a job for the TACPs, the Air Force TACPs, but it's a school that after the first few years, actually the first decade in between Iraq and Afghanistan, everybody started to realize how important a JTAC was on the ground, because we were just slaying people left and right. And so they were like, more people need to become they can't just rely on controllers because there's only few of us. So they opened it up, the school, SOTAC, to SEALs, Rangers, Green Berets, and a bunch of other dudes, whoever could become qualified. The problem is that it's like everything, like if you want to be a good pilot, you got to fly. If you want to be a good shooter, you got to shoot. And us as controllers, when we were stateside, that's all we did. We went to cast trips back to back to back. We talked to planes all the time. We either make them land or make them shoot. So we're like an oiled machine. Like when we go down range, it was no different compared to maybe like a SEAL guy who was a good SEAL, a good shooter. But when does he talk on the mic to an airplane, So, he will go down range and he will try his best, but, anyways, I think we're going subject, but
I think it's just, it's important that people realize there are different tiers when it comes to JTACs and CCTs and TACPs and the CCTs at the top tier. That's legit, guys. So
yeah.
it's
in
also
fact, the 2-4.
Go. They're the only tier 1 AFSOC organization, right?
Yeah, we have it. Yeah, combat controllers and PJs are considered tier 2, more or less, like SF, and so we were only get attached to either Ranger Bat, mostly ODAs. Like ODAs, I always work with ODAs and SEAL teams, but then you have the 2-4 STS, which is the only squadron in the Air Force that has tier 1 operators, and these guys are bona fide badass, because to be in that squadron, you have to pass an extra selection, kind of like the CAG has, or Team 6. And if you make it, then you enter this completely different squadron in Pope Air Force Base. And these guys, they're JTACs. They're only working with CAG, SEAL Team 6 and Brown. I mean, they do all kinds of weird shit. CIA, who knows, But so those are the tier one guys.
Yeah, I think to back up a little bit, how old were you when you went through the pipeline?
Oh, actually, so before getting to that, because the ordeal, it wasn't over yet. So at this point, I had a slot into the Oregon Air National Guard as a combat control trainee. But they just gave me a contract. I wasn't, I still have to pass all the paperwork, blah, blah, blah. And then a class date, I think was October at that time, 2005. And the class date was February 2006, right? To start the pipeline. You don't wear your red beret until you're finished with the pipeline. So it takes years to get to that. But even before that, I get a phone call, I think it was December, from the chief. And he's like, dude, I think we have a big problem, man. Your packet got completely kicked back by the National Guard headquarters bureau in Washington, D.C. by the what do they call him? The Surgeon General. Okay, so I was medically disqualified to be a controller, to begin training. And I'm like, why? So I found out that when I got sick in 2004 and I almost died, and I was in bed for a month, I lost 30 pounds. It was awful. In the meantime, when I was sick, I was intubated, hard intubated for 10 days on respirator. I got a septic embolism. A septic embolism is like you have this nasty infection that gets in your lungs and starts to kill the alveoli. So it's like an embolism, like when you have a bubble in your bloodstream that gets to the alveoli and it stops the blood flow, so it starts killing the tissues. So medically, it's called an embolism, which very well as a diver. It's the worst thing that could happen as a diver, right? Like you get an embolism, that means you could die from it, right? So this Surgeon General who's supposed to, screen everybody who's about to start special tactics training, saw in my medical record when I was in the Army as a diver that I had a septic embolism, but he didn't look at the word septic. He just saw embolism, and he's like, okay, this guy has had an embolism while a diver. He can no longer perform as a diver, because as a combat controller, you got to go to dive school and you have to stay on dive status your entire career. And he turned me down. And the chief was like, sorry, dude, there's nothing I can do about it. This is a Surgeon General. Once again, back home in Hampton, and I was like, I guess I'm not doing this. So I remember, the hospital in the Portsmouth Naval Hospital. I went there and I tracked down the admiral. Well, actually, I take it back. A commander. What is it like? 05 or 06
is the commander. Yeah, is a commander. Black or a silver oak leaf.
He was an 06, so he was like a colonel.
That's a captain. Yeah,
but Navy, right?
Yep.
A captain. That's right. He was a surgeon, a captain in the Navy as a surgeon, and his specialty was he was also a diving officer, and he's the guy who kind of saved my life. So I linked up with them. Now we're talking over a year later, and he's like, "Oh, I remember you," and so he helped me so much. Like he pretty much wrote a letter to the National Guard Surgeon General in Washington, explaining, hey, I'm a dive officer. I'm a 06. I worked with this guy, and I cleared him for dive duty after he got better. He went, because I actually went to dive soup school in, back in Panama City. So
yeah, that was in
diving.
2003. Yeah.
2004.
Was it 4?
No, you're right. So 2000.
Yeah. We were in flight school, and we came down to see you.
Oh yeah. You're right. Yeah.
And it might have been early 4. Yeah. Probably.
But the point is,
yeah.
Right. But the point was that he cleared me for dive duty, and he's like, dude, I cleared him for dive duty as a 06 diving officer. You should take my word. And I'm making it simple, but this took months. And in the meantime, they almost canceled me out of that class date in February 2006. And the chief calls me one day. He's like, all right, you got a letter from the Surgeon General saying that you are admitted back to the team. I mean, back to the pipeline. So I was like, oh my God, is this ever gonna freaking happen? Because there's so many obstacles. But now it's February 2006. I'm reporting to duty at Lackland Air Force Base for Special Tactics training and selection, and I am 35. Yeah, I was. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm
So
71.
you went through at 35, and it's also worth mentioning that I remember when you went back to the TMC or the dental clinic when they pulled that, you told the guy that you were in a lot of pain, and he just blew you off and sent you home with Motrin.
Med pills. And
yeah, it's like, hey man,
something
here's
like
an
that.
800 milligram Motrin. Get out of here. Typical Army, kind of medicine.
Yeah.
But so
Not
you did the pipeline at 35, which is that's it for the non-military
it's unheard
folks.
of. Yeah,
35 is an old man in the military. You're especially in units like that you're an old guy at that age.
Dude. I mean, the youngest guy in my team was 18. No. Yes, 18. I think it was just turned 18 or something like that. And the oldest was 22. So and obviously they put me, I was, staff sergeant because I came from the active duty. So I already have rank and time. So they put me as a team leader right away or class leader. But they were like, dude, you're grandpa. Like, you're much older than all the instructors put together. And so they were making fun of me, but not so much because PT-wise, I was kicking ass pretty good. So they were like, oh, this old man is beating you. So why don't you run faster or push more, and stuff like that. In the meantime, though, I was suffering because at 35, and, I mean, I was in good shape, but it was painful, man. What I didn't have, it was the recovery. Like at 35, you just don't bounce back like when you're 20. These guys could get drunk on a Friday night and be back at work on Monday morning and no problem. I just went to bed in the weekend with like frozen bags of peas and corn all over my joints because I was so beat up from the running, the pushing, that like in during the pipeline, your team doesn't go anywhere without carrying either a log, like a gigantic log, or you run with rocks, like 30-pound rocks. So they make your life. You're running with the gas mask, and it's ridiculous, really. There's obstacle courses every other day. It's never ending. They treat you like a triathlete because the Air Force wants to make sure that when a controller goes to work with another soft team, he's not going to be the guy dragging behind, So you have to represent. And that happened throughout my whole career. Like I show up to an ODA team and, in SOF, it's like, butt sniffing all the time. Like, who's this guy? Is he going to be okay during a firefight? Is he going to do what he's supposed to do? Nobody checks on you because you are the Air Force. You're a one-man team among a team of SEALs or Green Berets. So, when you're about to step out for a mission, nobody's going to check if you got your stuff, if you're ready. You got to know your stuff. Nobody's going to know what you do and how you do it. So, it's pretty challenging, but you get to be really close with the team after you work with them for after the first few months. You show them that you can bring the rain and really help the situation a lot. So
yeah, were you in because when you finished the pipeline, I remember at that time you were already in Oregon, and I was just going to the 160th at that point and I was at Fort Lewis, and you were down there in Portland. But you did a deployment before the deployment. I think you had one in Iraq before the one that we were on together, right? Or was that the first one you did in Iraq?
So no, that was
or did you Afghanistan
I did a pre-deployment, but that one was my no, that was my first one. Yeah, I did another thing in Shit, what were they? No, this was, what was it? It was more like a search and rescue operation with PJs we ended up doing, but it was not, it was still stateside. I did a shit ton of training, and then they shipped me out to Iraq, the first one. But it's funny that when I finished the pipeline, so it took me, a year and a half or so, almost 2 years. It was, and I went to Portland. It was August of 2007, and I joined the Army in August 1997. So from the moment I said, "What the hell, I want to be a combat controller," and I went to that recruiting center in San Diego, it took me 10 freaking years to the day almost to actually put a beret on and be stationed at a special tactics squadron. And so it's
what
probably
kept
like
you
the
going?
best. I think it was the same reason for when I left Italy. Like, I left because I wanted to do something, and I just never took no for an answer. And you know what? It was tough, but it kind of served me a good lesson in life, because I still do it to this day. I don't take no for an answer. If I want something really bad, I never stop at somebody telling me, "Oh, sorry, dude, but this," even if it's somebody officially telling me, now, not a stranger, but like, even if they put me a wall in front and say, "Sorry, dude, you can't even climb this wall. It's just, there's no way." I just don't give up. I just want to find out. I talk to people. I go around it, but in one way or the other, I did it. I kept doing it. I kept doing it until, 10 years later, I actually put a beret on, a red beret. And to this day, I just don't take no for an answer. I guess that's my
No,
mantra.
I think that's you and I are cut from the same cloth. We're the same way. I can remember, with my kids, or even, young soldiers, they would just say, "Oh, they said no," and I was like, "No, like, fuck that guy. Go talk to his supervisor," or, you know, you see these people over there,
Exactly.
they're doing it all. Like, what are they doing? Go ask them. And I feel like there's such a disconnect. And I'm not saying like kids,
Yep.
the kids today. I'm not saying that. I'm saying as society, if you want, I don't want to say get ahead. If you just want to do hard things, because hard things
Mm-hmm.
are rewarding, but if you just show up and put the work in and don't take no for an answer, you're already light years ahead of the people that you're working with. If you just show up with a good work ethic and a good attitude and don't take no for an answer, respectfully and tactfully, you're going to go where you want to go. But the minute you let somebody else control your destiny, that you've already lost at that point. Like, I try to tell the kids, and my kids, hey, nobody's
Mm-hmm.
coming to save you. You've got to do it yourself, and you've got to make it happen. That doesn't mean you can't, rely on your family and friends, but ultimately, if you want to do the thing, you've got to pay there's a tax for everything. And if you want to do great things, you're going to have to pay the tax. Now, if you don't want to do great things, that's okay.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's fine to do, normal things, but you don't get to bitch and complain that you hate your life if you're not willing to change anything, So, I think that speaks to you,
Absolutely.
with your
Absolutely.
character of just going, it took you 10 years. And from, if you really, if somebody was to say, "Hey man, I got this guy who's an Italian immigrant that just left Italy with a backpack on, and he's going to be a combat controller in, 15 years," I would be like, "Bullshit." Like, no way. But I mean, you did it. And so, and the thing is
I dreamt
you're,
about it, man. I
yeah.
like, like you say, not in my wildest dream. Actually, I did have dreams like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to become. I dreamt about it, and the dream got crushed many, many times. But years went by, okay, I got to do 4 years in the Army. Then, the 4 years turned into 8. But it still was there. Like, I never gave it up. Actually, do you remember when we met in Bragg? You were going through survival in
at SEER school.
At SEER school, remember?
Yeah, kind of. We did?
Yeah, I you were getting your ass kicked at SEER, and I was going through SFAS. So,
I forgot.
this is
I
just to
forgot
tell
all
you.
about that. Yeah. Yeah, because
Yeah,
nobody
so
knows that you went to SFAS and got selected too. Special Forces
exactly.
Assessment and Selection. Yeah.
Right. So when I was this is like from the dive. I was still in the dive unit, and things were not working out with the Air Force. So I immediately requested for SFAS, right? And I was selected. So I went to Fort Bragg for the assessment and selection. And that was the year that all the X-ray guys were coming out of the woodwork, So these 18 years old, fresh out of high schools, they would go to the recruiter, get an 18 X-ray package, and just get shipped to Fort Bragg, and they were trained them. And they were trained their butts like to pass SFAS. In the meantime, everybody else like me, we had to train on our own. Like, I remember my company commander back in the dive det, they were like, yeah, we support you going, but you're working here, so your training of like physical training and rucking to pass the test, you're gonna have to do that on your own. So I was back, like, getting up at 2 a.m. sometimes, because you got to pull in 12 miles ruck, so you got to start way early. And I was doing all those rucking. But back in the day, I was thinking like, well, I can always do SF. Yes, I could do that. It's not combat controller, but it's still special forces. Even though in the back of my head, I always knew, remember those words you used to tell me, like, oh, the 160, I love it, but I'm still in the Army. You're still in the Army. And I knew that no matter what tier you climb, the Army is still kind of, it's the Army. So a lot of BS you got to digest, but I'd give it a shot anyway. So I went to SFAS, passed everything, but I saw these kids coming in, and the Green Berets were changing, like totally changing. They were not what I was thinking anymore about Green Berets. And plus this mission set that they had, which is kind of get embedded with the locals to train them. Never really, I don't know why, dude. Army SF never really, I mean, I admire them because obviously within the SF community, they're good, but it was kind of like a fallback for me. And so I decided not to go for it. I decided to, like, thanks, but no thanks. And I didn't go for it. I got out of the Army, and did everything I just told you before, but I just didn't want to put myself through, the pipeline to become a Green Beret and probably be disappointed. And then I knew it was a good decision, because after working with ODAs my entire career, I kind of realized that, the way ODAs, they're good. There's some good, a lot of them not good.
Yeah,
and
I think
their job is kind of. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's for ODAs, for Special Forces Operational Detachment Alpha. Those guys are so unconventional, and they were thrust into when we were in the war, that they were doing unconventional warfare. Taking the host nation or the local national guys out and fighting. But the problem was they were so, their skill set really doesn't lie in direct action. It's kind of getting those guys to fight, and they were kind of put in a situation where it, like, I can distinctly remember working with an ODA once, and they wanted to do some crazy. They're like, "Hey, we want to strap, like, can we just tie a motorcycle on the side of your helicopter?" And I'm like, "No, no, we're not going to do that. Or maybe it was a boat. They want to do and they just had some rope and they're like, we'll just tie it on here. And I'm like, dude, we're going like 120 knots. Like the boat's going to rip off. And like, it's just, they thought so far outside the box.
They couldn't just do like a soft duck.
Well, no, I mean, they didn't have the equipment because they weren't like a dive team. So it was one of these weird things. And it was just, there was a marked distinction when I would work. I don't put myself, as a 160th guy. We are not operators. We're essentially, support dudes. And in the hierarchy of people that I want to work with as a pilot and support, hands down, overwhelming, is the CAG guys. Like they have, they would be just as well as a CEO of a company or an Olympic athlete or I've never worked with people on that level of professionalism in my life, and probably will never do it again. And then my second favorite in rank is Rangers, because if the Ranger guys say they're going to be somewhere at some time, they're going to be there. Or if something goes wrong, there's a lot of discipline in there. And then, and I like MARSOC too. They're kind of in that same family. That's this is probably a whole nother podcast about SOF, but the SF guys, and I exclude the CRIF teams. The CRIF is no more. They're SIF or CRIF. It used to be called SIF, and then they changed it to CRIF. CRIF teams,
if it's still around, I don't know if they're.
No, I think they got rid of them. Maybe they didn't.
Yep, I think so. That's what I heard.
Yeah, I think they're all gone. But CRIF teams, different animal. I don't put them in the same. And there are a lot of really good ODAs out there, like you said, a lot of really squared away.
Oh, yeah.
And then there, like you said, there are some really bad ones. But I don't think it was that they were intentionally. It just they weren't exposed to that level of direct action, and they weren't used to working with assets that enablers. So they just kind of were always winging it because they never really had great support. But were you on that Iraq deployment? Were you with 5th Group then? I feel like it was maybe 5th Group or 10th Group.
No, so the guys were 5th Group. Yeah, on that when we saw each other. Yeah, that was funny. Like, really, I realized that you were Chalk 4, I believe, or something like that, right? And
I was probably 3.
And you just, and I just remember, like, we were in the back of the pickup truck with flashlight looking over the plan, and I hear your voice, and I'm like, Thad. I'm like, holy shit, what are you doing here? That was weird. Like, really, that we met each other. I didn't know, like, because I usually, well, when we send in the 1974, the air request, they just tell us, okay, you get this many ships of this type, and we knew, and we really, we stay away from the roosters. My God, we always wanted to have the 160th to fly us around, and that time, it was you were in it, and I was like, that's funny. Like, I am, out of all the pilots, I gotta have Thad.
That was so wild, because I want to say that might have been 2010, maybe. And I think you were down in
because it was I was there for a year, like from 2009, mid 2009 to mid 2010. Yes.
Was that? Were you in? Were you down? Were you guys at Raptor and Baghdad?
I was at.
Were you at Balad?
Yeah. And then no, in at the airport. Yeah. And then I did some missions with. We ended up helping out CAG. They were what was that called? Camp Irish.
Fernandez.
What
or
was
Weeks.
That's
The
right.
one, yeah, Weeks and
It was
Fernandez.
yeah, and I ended up doing a few missions with them. They needed extra support, so my ODA went in support to them, and yeah, you like you said, working for KEG it's an eye opener. Like it was crazy, but
How
it
was
was
that
probably the
deployment?
best. It was well, kind of like an eye opener for me because um, the job as a combat controller, you're the only guy in the team, like as like a stranger, and then you have to become part of the team. And so I got used to the really like being self-sufficient. Like you don't have a team that supports you, like even you in the 160. I'm pretty sure you have your co-pilot, you have your crew chief, you have a team within your helicopter that it's those guys all the time, right? Or most of the time. For me, that was the weird experience. Like I was brought up as an infantryman, like your team, like you got your team and your squad, and you sleep, eat, you do everything with those dudes, and it's comforting. You know what I mean? Like you have these guys with you. You're never alone. And now as a soft operator, I was alone because I train with my guys in my buddies, my controller buddies back in Portland, traveling all over the world training. But then when I deploy, like in Afghanistan, we'll go to Bagram and we split. Everybody goes to a different team. You get a MARSOC team, you get a SEAL team, you get an ODA. It's a completely different place. You know what I mean? And initially didn't like it because it is not really. I kind of like the team cohesion. But then I realized how you become part of that team. So now I have friends in all the ODAs I work with, because to this day, sometimes we talk because, I became one of them, even though I was not a Green Beret.
Yeah, did you guys? If you were down in Baghdad, I mean, we were flying out a Raptor back then, and how was in 2006? Iraq had calmed down a lot since I was there in 2000, or sorry, in 2010. I was there in 9 and 10, and it had calmed down significantly from 06 and 07 when I was there, but it was still, there were still ops going on. We're still shooting it up every now and again. And for on the ground, were you guys still? Was it just kind of capture kill missions, or was it more? What were you guys doing at that time?
So we were working only nights. Like, so our up tempo was really like sleep during the day, work at night, because we were working for this weird Minister of Interior Special Forces of Iraq.
Oh yeah, the
And
ERU or ER.
yep, the
Yeah, those
GRU.
guys.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
still have the patch. And yeah, and these guys were their job was like they were going after bomb makers, uh, the the headhunter, the people that kind of like for Al Qaeda will go around and decapitate people, that kind of weird shit. So we had like one of our intel people working directly with them, and they will pull targets and objectives. And we had like they have their own sources. They were running their own. Even our Fox guy was running. I don't know about the terminologies that we can use, but you know what I'm saying? Like they were pulling their own intel about where these
Yeah.
people could have been, and we were just action on so like our training, our ops room looked like a CIS room, because they had all, this dude is connected to that guy and he's probably making bombs for this dude, and they were just keep investigating until, okay, we have a possible target on this house, and we're gonna hit it. And so once we hit the green light, it was literally like you guys would show up, fly us to. We trucked a lot. We obviously we kind of tag along with these GRU people, and we kind of guide them on the target, through the target, and I would just do all the air coverage throughout. But yeah, it wasn't actually not a lot of kinetic stuff because a lot of times we were working in Baghdad, deep in the city. Like, do you know that part of Baghdad? It was like on one of the bends in the river, and it was like the ancient part of it was like 3,000 years old buildings, some ridiculous, and the streets were so narrow you couldn't drive in them. So we would we kind of go all over these places, and a lot of times it was like chasing dudes on motorcycles, and it's so crazy. I had a good time, but it was yeah.
Did you do so? You did
I was
that.
37 at the time.
Yeah. I mean, that's physically a toll. So you did that deployment in Iraq.
Mm-hmm. And then, oh, and by the way, like, you know, I'm always the heaviest guy in the team because I'm carrying some big ass radios to talk to you guys. And when we were running around, jumping on roofs, I remember one time we were chasing this dude that was just skinny as ass and just running, and he was jumping from roof to roof, and it was like a movie, dude. I get to the edge of the roof, and I'm like, I can't make this leap. I'm gonna freaking crash. I'm too heavy. I can't make this jump. And what the ODA guy was with me, he was like a 22-year-old. You know, his kit was like super light. He's like, "That's okay, dude. I'll go." And so he jumped off and he chased this guy. I went down the street and kind of tried to follow him in on the street. But then in the end, I caught him because, you know, I had my friend in the sky. I had I think it was a Predator. And I was able to follow him with the camera. And in the end, it was just funny. That was one of my funniest moments.
Yeah. So after that Iraq deployment, I think you did one in Afghanistan too, right?
Yeah. Actually, almost back to back. It was 2000. Well, not back to back. I think I had to go back to do a lot of training, and then was Afghanistan. That was longer, and I did a lot of things there because it was. Remember when there was a lot of green on blue, like a lot of we were getting whacked by a lot of yeah. And so like I lost two buddies one time only, like two controllers were whacked by the Afghani next to him. So we were kind of running thin and they needed more people, so we deployed right away. And I went through 3 ODAs. Like it was like working for two guys one team in a village for 2 months, then go to another village and run a clearance operation for a month, then go to another village. And I was like bouncing all over the country. I mean, I was in the south in the desert, then I was back up in the east, then to the north, and it was crazy. It was like, and that was very active. I lost one of my good buddies. Like one time, one ODA needed an extra controller and an extra EOD, and I was pretty good friend with this EOD guy, an Army EOD. We were together in many instances, and we had to go together as a couple. So they put us on a chopper and sent us to this other ODA team to do a clearing operation for 3 days. But he didn't make it. So I had to, I came back to my original ODA, and, Nick didn't make it. So it was that was kind of tough. It was probably one of the worst to see when it wasn't like I only knew him for 6 months, but you kind of,
those bonds are
people
different
in a different way when you're downrange.
Yeah. And especially if you're fighting with them and living with them, it's totally different than, somebody, it's just.
And it was one of those things, like we went out so many times, and he diffused so many bombs. And then, but this one time, it was not with our team. We were borrowed. Like, hey, you guys go help out this ODA. So they truck us out there in another village, and we went on this 3-day mission. And he was only, well, what, maybe 50 yards in front of me. He went into this building to check it out, and the building went off. We pulled him out, but he was, I think his legs gone from the waist down, and we put him on a chopper, and he was still alive. But then we got finally back to our to their village, the ODA village, and we got, like, he pretty much made it to Germany, and he was still technically alive, but he was, like, he was going to be like a vegetable. So they flew his parents over, and they decided together to let him go. And we were still getting his packet. He was like a gear nuts. Like, he would buy all the Arc'teryx cool stuff. And so for months we were still getting Arc'teryx shit in the mail for him, and we didn't know what to do with it. Like, send it back. I don't know.
It's kind of like one of those, like, you kind of start to feel like you're getting over the peak of the loss, and then that gear would show up and you're like, God damn it. And then it's like a reminder of that. How has that trauma, because it really is trauma. I mean, like, that stuff is real, and you don't realize when you're dealing, because all these things typically, people always ask me not people always ask me, like my kids will ask me, and I don't ever tell them, but they're like, hey, what's war like? And I'm like, man, it's kind of incredibly boring until it's not. And when that situation goes kinetic, it's not usually, I mean, I'm sure there are lots of really sustained gun battles that go like Mogadishu style, that are running and gunning for hours and hours. But probably the overwhelming majority of these fights are very, very short bursts of intense violence. And at the time, at least for me, I never had the opportunity to process it in the moment, because it happens so fast. Like, you just react by the numbers. Hey, that guy's shooting, shoot back, do this, and so and I think it's for you, especially as a guard guy, as an active duty guard guy, when it's kind of like it's probably similar. And soft deployments are weird, because on a Friday, you're still going out on the target and doing the mission, and then you pack all your gear up on Saturday, jump on a C-17, and Sunday you're not landing to like a band, and like there's no like closure.
But I mean, I know, for example, you guys in SOAR, you were doing like more like, quick deployments. Like, you're in for what was like 3 months, 2 months?
Not even that.
1 month, right?
We do 30, 45 or 60s. Every now and again, you might have to do like a 70-day or the low density guys, the intel guys, or they would have to do 90 days, but they'd only do 1 90-day a year, maybe. Where the air crews would typically, depending on the battalion you were in, you were either on a 30, 45, or 60-day cycle. So
that is crazy, because and your job in it, right? Those 30 days are like, you show up, I think you have a mission like the same night.
I mean, we would get off this. I remember getting off the C-17, like unloading our aircraft, and a guy running up to me and giving me the mission packet for that night, and go, "Hey, you guys are briefing in an hour." Shit. And I remember like loading ammo in the brief of where I'm going to land and what I'm going to do, and then still getting to the aircraft, cranking the helicopter, and my magazines are my ammo's in like a bag, like a trash bag underneath my seat, because I didn't get a chance to finish loading all my ammo. And we would do,
you didn't have time.
We would go and do a hit, come back, refuel, go infill another unit, while we'd have two two ground forces on two different targets, 50 nautical miles apart, and we would be doing both. And you'd just fly your ass off for that
Jeez.
30 days, and then like Friday you'd finish, and another C-17 would come in and poop out two more black helicopters, high five those guys, and then you would hot swap that C-17 in Iraq, and then fly that back to Germany, spend the night in Germany. Usually, if we would, sometimes we go to Ramstein, sometimes we go to Spangalum, or sometimes you go to Spain. If you had a C-5, you'd end up going to Rota. And then if you were on a C-17, generally it's going to be Spangalum or Ramstein, or is it? Yeah, Ramstein. And and then you'd be back like my wife wouldn't even we would just leave our cars in the parking lot because we'd, hopefully you'd be home in 30 days. And so it was just really strange. It was so weird that when I was in East Africa, I'd lapped the SEAL team I was supporting. Like, I got there on the beginning of their deployment, did my time, went home, came back, did another deployment with them, went home, and came back again. I had 3 inside of their 6-month deployment, and they were just blown away. But what they didn't see is you're training in between those deployments. You're in combat on Friday, you're home on Sunday, and if they got the manpower, you might get like Monday off, and then Tuesday you're flying up to Fort Bragg, or you're going over to, or at this time I was out on the West Coast with you, because we would come down to Portland, and what was that place out in Washington, that National Guard training place? It was kind of out on the
Yakima,
coast,
or
not Yakima. It was to the east, like out on the. Started with an R.
Oh my God, Camp Rylea.
Rylea, yeah, we would go down to Rylea, and that's when we would do stuff with you guys. I feel like with the 125th, we were always doing soft ducks and K ducks and boat stuff, and fast roping. But yeah, so that what was the big? So when you were in Afghanistan, was that a year-long deployment, or was that like a 9-monther, or how long was that one?
It was it was I think it was like, that one was a 9-monther, because it was I started off first. They needed people in Bagram at the stock, and I was already like a senior guy, so I ended up spending a month or 2 there, and I couldn't take it anymore. So I'm like, start me off in a fresh, as a just JTAC, and they shipped me out. And then I did 2 months with 108, 3 or 4 months with another one. That was a long one. And if you remember, it was right after my divorce. So I really didn't even want to go home. Like, keep me here.
Yeah, I remember. I didn't know about the guys that were killed. I don't remember. Did we talk about that? I feel like we didn't. I don't remember that. I remember when you were in Afghanistan. I just don't remember us. And then for everybody, for situational awareness, I lived in Tumwater, Washington, Olympia, Washington, and Stefano lived down in what's the place
Portland,
in Washington?
So it was.
But you lived in
in Vancouver at the time, or
Vancouver.
Camas. At the time I lived in Camas, and
so they're like an hour and 20-minute apart. So we would see each other often. I mean, as much as we could, and we would either we'd come down there and hang out, or you'd come up, and then I think after that deployment, or maybe before, you came out to Georgia when we moved to Georgia. But how did that trip, or that deployment, has that deployment affected you, from that time on till now? Are you still dealing with any of that stuff, or how has it changed your life?
Personally, I have to say that the besides this, the stress of the firefight, seeing guys getting, not making it back and the whole 9 yard, I have to say that it was after Iraq that I came back and my first wife said, "You're different. Like, there's something about you that is different." And it was the same thing after Afghanistan. This time I was with my, my current wife, Laura, and it kind of stayed the same. So I almost want to say that the experience really didn't matter, the type of experience, if it was one worse than the other. Afghanistan was way more dynamic. I mean, it was like firefights and a lot of rocking in the shit land, and it was just a lot of, like, almost felt like a World War II, spending days and days in destroyed villages waiting to find the guys, and then all of a sudden you get in a firefight, and compared to Iraq. But yet the biggest change was Iraq. After that, it was kind of like the same. And I'm till this day, I am still, I have the same, I guess anxiety or, the same problems, I guess. So, it's funny because when you'll come back, at the end of the deployment, you come back to, what is it, Bagram or whatever, and all the shrinks were like, "So, did you discharge a weapon? Did that and this? Some, people didn't make in your team, blah, blah, blah. Are you okay?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah, I'm fine." I didn't, I think I got injured only one time, in, it was in the East. I got hit by very super close by a mortar round when I was on an ATV. But it didn't really get me with shrapnel. It was just knocked me out of the bike, and so they did, TBI study, whatever, but
Yeah, you get a
nothing came
concussion
up.
from the
Yeah, but nothing happened. I mean, nothing came up, and I was always like really defiant, like, "No, I'm fine. Like, I don't need to talk to nobody. I'm good." One time I had to go to the hospital, actually, in Bagram, because after a 3-day mission, it was so intense that, like, I remember spending days on a freaking rooftop talking airplane with the sniping team, and I was and then during the firefight, I was helping the machine gun man to bring up the 240 with the ammo on those, those crappy Afghani ladder that the rungs are like 5 feet apart. Like,
it's like the what do they call it? The ladder that you have at the gym, that the whatever that one's called. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
The rungs were so far apart, and I'm climbing it a million times, bringing, belts and belts of 762, and then go back, and talking to the plane, and then during the day and during the night. So I came back. There's that mission in particular. That was the same when my buddy Nick got killed, and I remember I could not lift my right arm. My right arm was limp. So I was trying to hold my rifle with the left, and I had a scar heavy. It's not a light weapon. It's not your M4. And so I was patrolling with my left arm. Yeah, and because my right arm was shot, like it was by my side, I had like a complete damage on my elbow, like an elbow tendonitis, but like 10 folds. So, but they were like minor injury if you think about it. It's not like I got shot or anything. But the doctors, I was always like, "No, I'm fine. I mean, I sleep. I'm eating normal. I'm okay." It took me years and years to really, mostly listen to who who lives with me to do something about it. I don't think I've done anything about it because I retired in 2021 with 23 years total service, and we moved to Finland. My wife got hired by the Finnish Environmental Institute, so we moved to Helsinki literally a month after I was out of the military, and we spent 2 years in Finland, and I I was Zooming with a VA shrink for 2 years, and I think it was a big waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, you probably heard me talk about this, but that's why I started this, because I had a really good a good psychologist or therapist in the Army, and she was a civilian, but she was a DA, Department of the Army civilian, embedded psychologist in our soft psychologist that we shared with 175, the Ranger, 1st Battalion, 75th. And she was really good. And when I got out, I tried to keep that going, and they just sucked. And it's not that they sucked as humans. I'm just saying they don't really understand. And the other thing is, when you're exiting combat, either you have to do it's probably the same in the Air Force and the Army. You, within so many days of coming home, you have to do your there's like a form, like a reintegration form or something, medical form. You have, hey, did you, like you said, all the things you said, and like the fucking last thing I want to do is talk about like I just want to get away from it. Like I don't want to talk about. Like the last thing I want to fucking tell you is some dude that's sitting in a fob or an office, like, hey, are you okay? Yeah, fuck off, man. I'm fine. Like the last thing I need is your fucking pencil pushing, and then you're going to stop me from doing what I love to do. And so the whole thing, like, I think it briefed well, like this is what we're going to do for the troops, but I don't know that anybody really fucking thought that through. Like I don't know if anybody, like, I'd love to go have one of those psychologists like get shot at a few times and then be like, oh, hey man, are you okay? You want to talk about it? Shut the fuck up. Like, so, so true. So that's why, so when this thing started, I didn't really intend for it to go down the road it's gone down. It was just a way that I was like, man, I gotta start talking about this shit, because a lot of times that depression or anxiety, and for me it's more typically anxiety than depression, but I've had those days where it'll just, some days you just don't want to get out of bed, and you just have a bad day every now and again. And if you think back to why, like we were talking before, I don't know if I told you this ever, but I remember when I was still active duty, we were in Hunter Army Airfield, and we lived in Georgia, and it's when my kids were young. They're all older now, but they were probably, Aubrey, my middle daughter, was she had to be maybe 8 years old, and I remember I was sleeping, and it was like 2 a.m, and she was sick or something, not feeling good, and she came in the room. And she stood over me and like didn't say like dad or anything. And she just kind of, I could feel this face looking at me, and it was dark. I see this face, and I just uppercut, like right hook, smash an 8-year-old's face.
Poor Aubrey.
Yeah, and she was tiny. I mean, she was a little, and I mean, I just sent her flying, and she's crying, and my wife is like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And well, Dad hit me, and I'm like, and it was just a reaction, and and it's I don't typically have issues with, like, if I hear a loud noise, or like some people will be like, fireworks are a problem. That stuff doesn't phase me, but I do get anxiety about certain situations. Like, I don't like to, I know it's probably pretty common. A lot of guys don't like to sit with their back to the wall. That I'm kind of that one.
Oh my God. You're describing exactly the same problem I have. Like, if I'm in a mall, there's a lot of people, my head was on a swivel like you won't believe it. Like I really cannot enjoy myself. And my wife looks at me like, "What are you looking at?" And I'm like, "Oh, I was actually looking what is the best cover." Like if anything happens right now, where should I duck?
Yeah,
And I don't know. I can't stop doing it.
I get on an airplane
Maybe
and I count the seats to the exit, and I'm like, okay, there are 4 seats in front of me. When all the lights go out, I'm climbing over 4, count 4 seats, turn left, hit the door, eject, I'm out. And or we go to like a restaurant. Okay, they take us to the table, and I kind of will position myself that I can observe the restaurant, and it's not. I don't know that it's a PTSD thing for me. It's more of I'm trying to protect the people that I'm with, but when you zoom out, you probably don't really need to. I mean, this is unless you're like in a shitty part of town, but I think when you deal with
to me,
stuff like
I
that,
tell you
yeah,
that the most frustrating part, both Iraq and Afghanistan, it was that I have to be so nut to butt with these counterparts, dude. And for example, in Iraq, these I lived inside their compound, right, of these GRU, and they were always sometimes they would be like, oh, with that we had to let that guy go because we think he was Al Qaeda, and so I was not really sleeping well. Like as a matter of fact, I have pictures of I didn't send you that, but I have pictures of my sleeping quarters in Iraq where on my bed I had an AK with two magazines taped together, and it was hanging right there by my side. Then I had 2 or 3 hand grenades in my drawer, like right next to the pillow. I have my pistol, my Glock under the pillow, and my and like spare mags. And so pretty much I knew I wanted to do my last stand laying in my bed, because I always thought if these guys are coming for me, it's going to be when I'm asleep, and they know I'm an easy target because I'm right there. But I'm just going to like, I'm going to go out with a bam right here in my bed. And I mean, it might have been stupid, but to me, it was like that. And in Afghanistan, it was even worse because I could not, after all those green and blue, I had to look out for what's happening around the corner. But then I have to worry about the guy next to me. And I was actually feeling good about what's out there because I had this bird in the sky I was talking to constantly. Like we bother the shit out of those pilots because we don't want to be like, oh, just do a scan out, like, I don't know, 200 yards and let me know if you see anything. Controllers don't do that. We are like, we direct the sensors where we want it, how we want it. So we want to keep that pilot engaged all the time. And so I felt good about kind of like SA around my area. But the pilot can't do nothing for the guy that is like 2 meters from me. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
And I'm supposed to trust. Or like when we were back in the village and there's me and 12 ODA guys, and this is it. And the next American is, I don't know, many hundreds of kilometers away. And my only security is this on the outer perimeter is this Afghani SOF team, which they've turned out to be, they could turn out to be, bad guys any minute. And so we were pulling so many extra shifts just to make sure that, we were safe. So you end up sleeping almost nothing. You're constantly tired. And I don't know, that's probably why it hits me when I'm asleep. Like what happened to you, it happened to me so many times that both my wives were like, you do not get near him when he's sleeping. You let him wake up on his own, but you don't wake up. Don't wake him up, because I reacted so bad so many times. I never harmed anybody, but it was really like, even if one of the kids would yell because he had a bad dream, I will be like flying out of the bed and I'll be in his room in a nanosecond, with my heart like going 100 miles an hour and like, what's going on? And
Yeah.
she'd be like, no, it's okay. It's okay. You just had a bad dream. It's a bad dream. It's okay.
Yeah, that's my wife was telling me that a sign of trauma is like when if you hear a noise or you're sleeping. I don't know if this is true because we're not psychologists. She's dabbled in trauma therapy stuff, but that if you hear a noise and you like get really rigid or kind of jerk complete, like I'll go from dead asleep to hear a noise to I am 100% switched on and ready to do
Yes,
something.
exactly.
And I don't there is a marked distinction when people talk about combat to the lay person or even people that have experienced combat. There is a definite difference between seeing close quarters combat or massive, actual firefight on the ground compared to being shot in an aircraft. They're totally different. So when you hear, people are like, hey, or you're a support guy on a fob and you get mortared. Most people would be like, oh, that dude was a fob it, and he got, a mortar round landed next to him, compared to like you, where you're out you're out in the wire doing the thing, and then, or like a guy like me in a helicopter getting shot at. From other perspectives, those are totally different events in severity, right? The problem is your brain doesn't know the difference. Like your brain doesn't go like, well, I was just mortared on the fob. You were still about to die, motherfucker. So that's so that's why, when you see guy, like I always see, I would always be like, that guy was, how is that guy 100% VA disabled? How's that dude have PTSD? Like, what? He was a postal clerk, but you don't know, you have no idea what happened to that guy. Like, you don't know the skeletons in that dude's closet, and in the early part of Iraq or 2006, we were just getting waylaid by IEDs, and all these kind of support guys that were normally like motor pool dudes or supply guys or in these long convoys just getting schwacked from IEDs, and that's massive trauma. And so the point to this is you never know what the other person's going through, but by and large, the body's responses to it are generally, I would think, again, not a psychologist, I'm just pulling this shit out of my ass, but they're usually the similar experiences. And that's why like having these conversations are very important, I think, because at least, like I don't have the answers. I don't know how I don't know if this ever goes away, but I also know that other people are going through similar things, and it's not like dudes, and I've known you forever. You're not like you're a man's man. Like you're not like a girl. You know what I mean? Like, but there is something valuable in, at least at a bare minimum, having the conversation, and that you walk away going, oh, I guess I'm not the only dude out here that feels that way. So, I think it's important to keep having that. And I would also recommend is keep trying to find a good therapist. Cause I found that, the therapist that I had in the Army, who was command, because of positions, we had to see the psychologist, not command ordered, but the soft world went to that, kind of whole body health, mind, body, and spirit kind of thing. And it's very important to try to with her in our sessions. She probably talked less than 10% of the time, and it was never like any like massive words of wisdom. It was always like, well, why would you think that? Or it was never like, well, tell me about your mother. It was never anything like that. It was, I would say something, and most people think that folks with PTSD or anxiety, or veteran guys, first responders, cops, and it's the worst for cops because they have like zero support at like nothing. But I
Yeah.
think they don't have anything. But a lot of people think that you're like huddled in a room when the fireworks are going off, and there are guys like that. I'm not, but I think probably more common is, here's a quick example, and this is a long diatribe to get to the point. Is I went surfing Saturday, and I grew up surfing in Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina, and um, I was never really that great, but I was enough that I could surf all the time, and I would enjoy it, and I would spend, it felt like hours. I remember getting to the beach at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and I'd surf till the sun was setting at like 8 in the evening in the summertime, and I'd go after school and I'd
Nice.
surf from like 4 to like 6:30 at night. Like, I can remember getting out of the water and it was dark, and so I haven't been since last summer, and we live at the beach, and I went out there and I paddle out, and I'm in the gym and I'm in okay shape, and I was smoked after like 10 minutes, and I caught a couple waves, and my balance sucks, and I would fall off, and my hips were hurting, and I've got a bad hip, and I was so pissed, and it's like when you said you can't. My wife always says like, "Why can't you just relax?" And I'm like, "Because I just can't." Like, and the beach, I used to go
Yeah.
surf, and it would just totally calm me down, and that was like my happy place. And then here I am Saturday, I'm just furious because I'm like, why can't I do anything, and why does everything hurt? And I remember saying in my head, like, just give me the fucking answers. Like, I just want to know,
Mm,
like, why is my old happy place now a miserable thing? Why can't I find enjoyment in anything? And um, I think that is probably a very normal. It's not like you walk around miserable, but when there's obvious moments of joy that you should be super excited, that your kids, you can look in your kid's face and see that they're excited.
mm.
I used to get excited over that, and now I'm like, I gotta fucking take the trash out. You know what I mean? Like, there's no, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if you ever feel like that, but
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm there, but I'm not really there, if that makes sense. Um, so
Yeah. Personally, I just my wife and her with I follow up a lot what she's doing, and the fact that she dragged me to Finland for 2 years. A funny thing, I ended up having to, as an immigrant, to go through the Finnish immigration system. So I was studying Finnish for 6 months. I actually got pretty good at it. Um, weird things like a month before I was living in Portland, Oregon. Now I'm in Finland, plowing snow and speaking Finnish, and that kept me really busy. Then I decided to go back to school and studying a master, and that's I didn't like it because I don't like to study, but it just gave me a purpose instead of just going right back to work. And now I just finished yesterday, as a matter of fact. I just officially finished my master degree, and I'm starting another degree in August. And it's one of the things that keeps me sane. Just keep working, keep doing that. I have two little kids with my wife, and compared to the other three, that they're old and living all over the place, two in Japan and one back in Oregon. But these two little ones, they keep me so busy that you're talking about taking the trash out. Shit, like I have, in between cooking and cleaning and laundry and then studying and taking them everywhere. I am so busy, I don't even have time to get bored, really.
Yeah, and I think I've talked about this on the podcast. Is purpose is king here. Is when you need a purpose, whatever it is, you got to figure that out. But you got to find your purpose, and especially for people like us that came from the backgrounds and the things that we did, sometimes the mundane things you don't find a lot of purpose in. It's very hard. What are you doing for? Are you still working out? Are you still what's your physical routine like now?
I still get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I go to the gym. That's never changed. Whether I was in Finland or back in Portland or here, I still do it. I am beat up. I have some physical problems in my legs, but actually I have to get surgery this fall. But so I can't run anymore. But I hit the bike and I hit the weights, and I'm always doing something. I try to stay in shape as much as possible. That is something that, when you're in SF, especially for the controllers are like freaking triathletes. I mean, my buddies to this day they're crushing anything you could give them PT wise. I was never. We used to say there are strong controllers and there are smart controllers. I was more like a smart controller. I was not definitely the strongest one, but I still enjoyed PT. Like, I never stopped doing PT in my whole life. So I always been in the gym or outside doing something my whole life, and I'm still doing it to this day. But the purpose is also like, I always knew I wanted to be in the military. But now that I'm not, I am kind of dreading a bit working as a civilian, but my purpose now is to just get a better job. I'm just not going to do the first thing I can find. So that's why I want to go back to school. I want to get a degree and do something more. Maybe I'm going to try to apply for NATO here in Norfolk. There's a lot of stuff in the analytical field of defense, instead of just being, a contractor that teaches I don't know, weapon handling or, or be a JTAC instructor, that kind of stuff. So kind of reinvent myself right now. I don't want to stick with what my buddies are doing. I want to kind of, Stefano 2.10, 2.0. I want to do something different.
Yeah, I think that's also a fairly, I don't want to say a fairly common thing, but I'm kind of in the same place right now as, I was a pilot for so long. I still fly and I still teach, and I'm just kind of, I love it. It's part of my identity, but I kind of want to move on, and I don't know what that is yet. But I think I want to, like you said, reinvent yourself, just because it's the challenge of doing something new. There's a book that I'll text you about, but for everybody else, it's a very interesting book. It's called From Strength to Strength. It's by Arthur Brooks. I don't know if you ever heard of that guy. Dude has a crazy story.
Familiar.
It's called From Strength to Strength, and he's like a classic French horn musician and a public speaker and an author and just kind of an academic. And in his book, From Strength to Strength, in episode 1, I kind of talk a little bit about it. And basically he tells you what to do. He kind of lays out how to find contentment in the second part of your life, which sounds like you're on that road and I'm in there too. And there's some really cool concepts. So I would recommend check that book out. It's really good. From Strength to Strength by Arthur C. Brooks. Hopefully you can get something out. So let me ask you this: was Finland really the happiest place? Like that, they rank like the world's and I'm like, bullshit, no fucking way. Like there's like 18 feet of snow there, and it just kind of looks like it sucks. But
It is
was
bullshit.
it
It is
really? Was
bullshit.
it?
In fact, if absolutely not, it's miserable. In fact, there's been, when Finland was became part of NATO, and they did
Yeah,
that big ceremony in Finland. I think Biden was there or something like that. But the bottom line is that the president, the prime minister of Finland, spoke, and he said, and I can't believe he's got a weird Finnish accent, but I can't believe Finland has been selected once again, because it's not the first time, it's like a fourth year in a row, the happiest country in the world. And he says, I can only imagine how miserable can it be out there if we are the happiest one. And everybody laughs, because the only reason why Finland wins all the time is because whoever measures happiness, they use as measurements such as your social pressure, or how easy is the life there. And Finnish people, really, it's a small society, there's 5 million of them, they got everything down to a T. I mean, there's a Finnish person doesn't have to really worry about many things as far as his life, medical stuff, being promoted, being finding a house, buying a car. Everything is kind of structured, and you're safe. The pension system works perfectly. There's a lot of safety nets compared to in the States, where you can end up on your ass, overnight. Uh, and so when you put it all together, they got the highest score for everything. So therefore, if you're Finnish, you must be the happiest guy on earth. But in reality, it's such a miserable place, and Finnish people, with their character, reflects exactly their weather. So they're like, I mean, I don't know how to say it. They're colder than the atmosphere. They're so unfunny. They're very closed. They don't open up at all. It's the darkness is the worst part, not the cold, not the snow, how
because it's
dark
so
it
far
is.
north. Yeah,
Yeah, like I wouldn't, the winter, especially if it's cloudy, that's it. You don't see the sun until spring. It's crazy. Like you live in the darkness. It reminded me of that movie 28 Days of Night or something, like when the
yeah,
vampires get to
yeah,
Alaska. That's how
yeah.
it is. That's how it is. There's no, and then in the summertime, you have 2 months where the sun just never leaves. It's there like even at 1 a.m. and it's too much, like I want to sleep, and you're trying to close everything. It's too extreme. It's an extreme place. I enjoyed it because there were so
Yeah, it was an
many
adventure.
weird
Yeah,
things you could do. It's an adventure, learning the language, but on the other hand, is I would never go back there. Definitely never live there.
yeah. I especially after we went to Italy for the first time over Christmas, and we had such a great time. Like we were like, Italy's awesome, but there are things that being an American in Italy, you know, that I even in my short 7 days, I really enjoyed it. The Italian people were great, but there was little things that I was like, shit, it's Sunday and I need to go get this thing, and every place is closed, or man, I'm really hungry.
Yeah,
Oh, do you want to? Let's pull over at this gas station. Oh, guess what? Only there's nothing. There's no convenience to
nothing.
it.
No.
And maybe that's a good thing, but anyway, so what is next for you? So you're working on what did you do your master's in?
Master arts in global defense. So it's kind of like it's geared towards international affairs, but with an eye on defense. So like like analyst that works in NATO or an analyst that works in NGOs, and they kind of uh, analyze the conflict resolution, that kind of stuff. That's the core of the studies, and it's a master. But now I'm starting a GIS, Geographical Information System, which is more like a software course. It's a certificate that I'm going to do here at ODU in Norfolk, and it's 1 year, and that's because it kind of marries up really good with geopolitical studies, because you were able to actually map out any analysis or studies that you do. Now, as far as getting a job after that, I'm really leaving it open. Like, I could work for a SEAL team training operation and go back doing what I was doing as a senior combat controller, when I was in charge of the training shop, and so organizing training and stuff. Or I would like to get a job like in NATO as a analyst in defense. So I'm leaving it really open, and I can do that because the only really thing that I wanted to do in life, I did it. So I'm content. There is nothing that, I feel lucky because, like, my daughter, she's 22. She's just now finishing with the Air Force 4 years, and she's going to start going to college. And I can tell that she's always been indecisive. Like, I don't really know what I want to do. I could do this, but I could do that. But then he, changes her mind, and I want to do that. And it's always, kind of stumbling between the things that I always had a clear mind. I knew what I wanted to do. I've done a million jobs, but there was only one that I wanted to do it. Now I've done it. I'm happy. I'm kind of like envious of flying choppers like you, because it's something that I could still do. But being a soft operator, when you get too old, you're too old. I'm sorry, but you could train somebody, but you definitely cannot remain up, active. So I have to change. But as long as you do something, you just got to keep moving. You just don't sit down.
And I think it's really worth highlighting that you did do what you wanted to do, and how awesome is that to say, I got to do the thing that I did, that I always wanted to do. Would you say, if, looking back, if you had to do everything all over again, would you still go through with it and do it?
Oh yeah. 100%. When I met you the first time and I told you about Combat Controller, and then it took me 10 more years to do it. I mean, I'm not saying that I would like to have such a, I wish I could have become a controller when I was 18 years old, really. If somehow I could have become a combat controller when I got out of high school in 1989, I graduated Italian high school, and I could somehow become, a special operator, that's what I would do. Absolutely. Unfortunately, in between the fact that I was born in Italy, and it took me so much to overcome, the citizenship, the the programs, the injuries, blah, blah, blah. It took me, to do it at 35. It was painful. So I wish I could have done it at 20. I would have a longer career, and, and I still would have done what I wanted to do. So it took me a long time, but I still did it. So in the end, I'm still happy. Like, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, that's the really important takeaway, is even with all the things, or the negative part, the positives probably still outweigh the negative. And
by far, yes.
Yeah, and have you ever heard of EMDR? Have you ever heard of that, EMDR therapy?
EMDR. I don't think so.
It's called eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Mm-hmm. It's basically like this. It's like a psychotherapy treatment that they have these. It's like a light bar, and the light moves back and forth, and you watch the light, and or you can do it with I think they do one with sound, and you wear earphones and there's a little sound. But anyways, it's for traumatic stuff, and it's had really, really good results. It might be worth looking into, or whoever's listening to this, maybe go talk to your clinician or
EMDR.
psychologist. Yeah, EMDR. It's kind of a specialty thing. Like a lot of psychologists aren't, they're not trained in it. I'm going to have a guy on this podcast coming up who just got trained in it. He's actually a PTSD. He did 5 tours in the conventional army, 4 or 5 in the conventional army. These are year to 15-month tours as a, I think he was a 11 Bravo. He was 11 Bravo. And so he had some significant PTSD. And then he eventually became a therapist, and he's done that therapy. I've known a few other people that did it, and it was short of it. I'm going to stop short of saying it cured them, but it's like 90 something % better, so EMDR is worth looking into for everybody out there that would be interested in it. Again, not a psychologist, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express once. So, but I would look into EMDR, and I still would recommend keep looking for a therapist. A lot of them suck. It's just, you got to find the right one. Obviously, you can always call me or anybody. But I think to kind of sum up, when people hear your story, it's probably one of resilience and determination, and you're one of those classic like you could probably write a book about, because we didn't even scratch the surface. There is so much that you've done that we didn't even talk about, there's so many stories of the crazy stuff and the experiences that you and I had. We kind of skipped over that you were in the Air Force and I was a pilot. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but we were flying missions and we're doing war, years after we were in the same unit together. So there's so much that you could put on paper or write. Maybe you should write a book.
Maybe.
I'm sure.
Do you remember Scalise?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know he was my team sergeant in 1 ODA?
Yeah, he was telling me about that, because I had
he was third group.
Yeah, I did a thing back in when I was in 3rd Battalion. I put me and this guy Jeff Shadwick invented this training thing where we would bring all the ground forces down to Hunter and do a bunch of kind of 350-6 training. And for the non-SOCOM people, we're talking like fast roping, helo casting, parachuting, all the infill and exfil techniques to get combat troops where they need to go. And Scalise he was a master sergeant. He's like, dude, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah, it's so crazy, and then you got guys like Mercado and Miller all went SF, both 5th.
SF, yeah.
Mercado is 7th group, and Miller went to 5th group. And still, I don't know where. I don't know where if Mercado's still in or not. I'm pretty sure Miller's still in. But it's so wild how
oh yeah,
how
especially
small the
way
is.
Like you met him. You met him in training, but I met him like they shipped me out to this village where they needed an extra JTAC because they were so active, and it was hard to fly into it because every chopper was getting lit up every time it would enter the airspace, so they had to wait for like windows at night to come in. And I come in and they drop me off. They literally toss all my gear off the bird and leave. And so the smoke is still, building up on the LZ, on the HLZ. And this dude I see in the shadow kind of like helping me gathering all my crap. And then so I'm gathering all my shit and he goes like, G? And I'm like, yeah, who are you? And I look kind of like it was freaking Scalise. And he was the team sergeant of the ODA. And so I spent 2 months with him on that ODA, and it was pretty bad for those guys. That's when I got hit by the mortar. Like not even 2 weeks after I was there, they lost 2 guys in a pretty big firefight. It was Scalise. It was I saw him in very challenged. That dude been through some. Probably was shooting too many Carl Gustav on top of that. Like he would not come back with the Carl Gustav round. He will fire him off.
Yeah.
And those things, they rattle your cage. Like literally the patrol was over.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. Those Carl Gustavs are going to go up against something and he will just shoot them off.
Yeah. It's a recoilless rifle. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting. It's always cool to see the people, to kind of watch people's careers and kind of see where they go. Abe Jaco is a 787 pilot for United, flies back and forth to Europe. The guys like Johnny Moore is an executive with Trigicon. I think he still works for Trigicon.
He almost did some business with my unit in Portland.
Yeah.
Because he's up in Seattle area, right, man?
Yeah. So it's Travis Kaufman is a doctor, or he's a PA, which shocked the war. Like I was blown away. I was like, but yeah, these are all guys that we knew as young 18-year-olds, and you kind of watch their career and where they go, and then you.
Oh, and the Apache pilot? No, what was the Apache pilot?
Oh, Connolly. He was killed. Are we talking about Connolly? Ryan Connolly?
He was killed in a training accident.
Yeah, he was killed. There's so many guys that, they do this job, and, people don't come back. And on one hand, they signed up for, you can say like, hey, they knew what they were getting into, which is true to an extent. But it's important that we try to at least, remember them. And I'm not saying you got to put a LinkedIn post or a Facebook message, or I'm not saying, 'cause some of that is kind of like, I don't know if people, you can see the ones that are bullshit, but
it's too easy.
You got to think. I think about guys, and that's where I think it matters is when you're by yourself and you think about those dudes that didn't come home. That's keeping the memory alive for them, and and then you owe it to them to be better, and they were cut short, and so you've got to be the best you can be with the time you have left, and that means you got to try to be the best dad and the best husband and that you can be. And so I think it sounds like you don't have all the answers figured out, but you're on your way. I mean, this is a process. You just got to do it. Everybody says like, oh, getting out of the military, it's a transition hack, and you're going to do this. There's no fucking shortcuts to this at all. This is a long road, and but so was getting to be a combat controller. So, everybody's got to start somewhere. So I think
if anything, I learned patience.
Yeah. And
I'm not in a hurry to do anything.
Yeah. And I think, and let's not ignore the fact that you still make a really good cup of coffee, like better than most most folks have had. So, and shameless plug, Tyler, he's on the show a lot. He's bringing his coffee company, Polestar Coffee, back. So everybody.
Oh, really? Yeah, I remember listening to him, but I think it was not going like his company when. What happened to it? Like it?
Yeah, he had to close
bankrupt or something. Or
not really bankrupt. It's just he left the Army, and they had to move, and then the move didn't go well, and then it was just a cascading thing where he just couldn't get.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually today we went and looked at a property that they're going to put they're going to put their operation in, hopefully in this property. So we went and toured it, and hopefully it's going to be really good for him.
Can't wait to try some of that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I'll send. I'm not, I'm just plugging a buddy's business, but he's a coffee snob, so it's going to be good. So it's going to be like how you like it. You can't have their piss water as So, but
oh hell no.
But yeah, so I think that's a good place for us to end it. I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart, I've always thought really highly of you. You're one of my best friends, and I appreciate you coming on and talking with me today.
It's been an honor and a pleasure to be on your podcast, Dad. Thanks again.
All right, man. We'll see you next time.